commission commission meeting to order. I'd ask all of you to silence these little puppies for the benefit of your fellow audience folks and everybody at the table and folks that are making comments today. We're going to start with a roll call. Commissioner Walters, we'll start with you.
John Walters, Indian River.
Pete Ridley, Grand Rapids.
I live in Lowell, Michigan.
Brandon Fewens, Traverse City.
Morning, David Nyberg from Marquette.
Good morning, Nathan Gamble from the Department of Attorney General.
Deputy.
Shannon Lott, Deputy Director, DNR.
All right. Commissioners, we have a very full schedule and we're going to lose a couple commissioners this afternoon. So I'd ask for a motion to approve the agenda. However, I'm also going to ask for your flexibility. If we start to run over in the director's report, we might save some of those presentations for after public comments and action so that we can get through a couple orders that we need to decide on today. With that stipulation, may I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed, the same. The agenda is approved along with flexibility. I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the July 8th meeting minutes from our Natural Resources Commission meeting.
So moved. Second.
Any edits or discussion? Yes, Commissioner Nyberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a note that I'll be abstaining from voting since I was not present at last month's meeting.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or edits? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the same. The meeting minutes from our July meeting are approved. Director, turn it over to you.
All right, thank you. And thanks for everyone for being here today. We have a couple awards I want to start with. We are part of the Midwest Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies. That's the 13 states in the Midwest. And this past year, I was the president of the association and had the pleasure of working on our awards committee there in the Midwest. And we actually had 2 biologists this year that won awards in the Midwest. So they compete against all 13 states in the Midwest. So I'm going to recognize them today. And I have a little write-up that I'm going to read, and then I'll bring them up. I think Brooke has the awards for me. Okay, awesome. And then we will bring them up, see if they want to say a few words. All right. So the Biologist of the Year Award, I'm not going to read all of it. Super, super great write-up. This is Samantha Courtney. Here's her 2026. I'm going to have you stand, though, while I do this. Where is she? And then we'll bring you up. The shy biologist. Actually, you can come up here. I just have to use the microphone.
I know.
So Sam came to us not too long ago in 2024 from West Virginia Department of Natural Resources as the new deer biologist dedicated to statewide deer management, policy and regulatory work. You've probably talked with her in that capacity. She has a ton of experience in analysis for deer work. About that time, we also needed a privately owned cervid position to be filled as an acting role. So she stepped up when we asked her to, and privately owned cervids are high fence deer and elk pens. So captive cervids, captive deer and elk. And so we asked her to take on that role to work with Department of Agriculture as well for disease surveillance in these facilities and inspections and renewals of their licenses. So this is a big task. If you don't know that program, there's around 380 facilities at any one time in Michigan, and it's a big ask for her and for the field to do inspections on these places. There were registrations that weren't being completed, fence inspections that were not being done. And so she began to set up appointments with several of these folks. So, and also get the field back on track with who was out of compliance and who needed a visit. So it's a really important component of the work that we do. for us to maintain that side of our inspections and our regulatory piece, in addition to all of our management on the wildlife side or free ranging side. She had a whatever needs to be done attitude, which is what they wrote here. So that's pretty awesome. And she embraced the challenge and accepted the role as a true team player. She also surpassed expectations, and that's not an understatement, in learning a brand new program at a statewide level. So I wanted to thank her for her time to come today and for her awesome work and her improvement of the program over that entire year. So thank you. All right, come on. This is my favorite thing to do, by the way. I think this one I might have to read from my phone. Sorry about that. So Kristen Wildman, there she is, has been with us quite a long time in the department and is actually currently a supervisor for the department. Let's see if I can get to her right up here, but coming up through the ranks in the department. So she has, let's see what her, okay. So she has a very disciplined attitude with all of our staff and our folks in the field, which really helps to add clarity to the work that we do. She's been like that from the start of coming into her role in the DNR. She had a foundation in research of snakes. So the Massasauga rattlesnake, which you might not know, the only poisonous snake in Michigan, she worked on early in her career. She's learning to actively produce a future for folks in the division. She teaches and influences others. And likewise, they also help influence her in the field as well. She's dedicated to constant growth and has huge knowledge and abilities for what we do in her Southwest Michigan part of the state. That's where she's a supervisor. She's helping to train the next generation of wildlife professionals there, and there are a lot of new staff in the Southwest. She's a certified wildlife biologist through the Wildlife Society and motivated to professional standards that they keep. She's a 2024 National Conservation Leadership Institute Program Fellow, which is one of the main national programs where a lot of wildlife biologists in the country go, and it's really hard to get in, and she made it. So that's a really big testament to her work ethic as well. And her impact is broad, and it's not necessarily one or two people that she's met along the way, but actually the whole entire conglomerate of the organization that have crossed her path. I like that. She does great work on the ground and accomplishes a positive impact for her internal and external partners here at DNR. So wanted to say thank you. She got a Spirit of the Shack Award, which is what I kind of embodied there by reading that, and that's that you make a difference broadly and you keep that up throughout the years in your career that she has been here. So thank you, Kristen. All right, thank you guys for recognizing them. All right. Now we're going to have a budget update. So a couple times a year, we come to the table. We have our chief budget officer come to the table when the executive recommendation is released by the governor. That's usually late January, early February. And then once the budget is passed, we also come and give a presentation on what that looks like. So the budget was signed about a week and a half ago now, maybe 2 weeks ago, by the governor. So we've prepared a presentation. We have our acting CFO, Kristen Phillips. She's also our administrative deputy director. So you've seen her here every month as well. our Chief Budget Officer, Jason Crandall, and then our Assistant Chief, Keith Kintai, is here. We're going to talk specifically about waterfowl funds for those of you that came to chat about waterfowl today. All right, go ahead. Actually, let me just read a couple things before I do that. I forgot I'm supposed to give them a lead in. So I wanted to make a few comments today, especially for those that aren't generally here for a commission meeting, but this is a great forum for you to see what the department is about, how it works, how the commission works. So we appreciate that you're here. We've taken the opportunity in the past few months, if you've been watching any of the meetings, even online, to go over each division budget. Chair Humphreys asked that we did that to be transparent to the public about more specifically what each division does. So we just finished that with Parks Division last month, going through their budget. And so this is it's a complex budget, and a lot of people don't understand what restricted funding means, that you can only use it for one purpose. And that's very different from all other state agencies. So we'll get a little bit into that as they go through this. The last point is important, that you're going to see an overall increase in the DNR budget this year for one-time investments, meaning we asked for help with infrastructure in hatcheries and in some of the other offices on some of the dikes that we maintain and some of the dams that need to be removed or fixed. So one-time money does not stay in our budget. That's not used for staff. That's used to pay contractors to do work for specific infrastructure. So you'll see that as well. We have a concern, obviously, that for the last two budget cycles, we've talked with the governor about a license fee structure that we were presenting to the legislature as a moderate increase. And we'll talk a little bit about that here. That is not included, though, in this budget. It wasn't included last year either. We recognize we want to maintain services to the public, and we do want to care for all the natural resources here to make sure you're all safe and have great natural resources to be out and hunt and fish in. But we can't continue to go on as we have. Just like a family, I like this analogy, we thought of that, it's just like a family sitting at the kitchen table to make hard decisions about what you can and cannot afford. Same thing. We need to continuously review our budget and make some determinations about what we can no longer do. The last time the department saw a change in this hunting and fishing license realm is 2014, 12 years ago. Think about if you had to live off what you were making in 2014 with the price of everything today. Everything that's high for you is high for us. Gas, vehicles, all of it. Costs have risen, in some cases skyrocketed. You'll see an inflation slide that they have. And at the same time, the number of hunters in particular continues to decline about 2% a year. As you all know, you've all seen that trend. This is a simple math problem. You're going to see it's math, right? You have more expenditures than you have revenue coming in to do the work. So conservation is largely funded by license fees and federal excise tax. Excise tax, if you don't know what that is a tax on firearms, ammo, angling equipment, rods, all of that you utilize to do the recreation in those two particular areas. Without an increase, we're going to have to determine a way to right-size operations, and you've seen some of that already, and to live within our means. We are in a period of retraction over the last 3 years. We're going to continue to look at the DNR budget as a whole and reassess our priorities with decreasing revenues and declining purchasing power. You'll see a slide showing that. We've lost 41% of our purchasing power. Our goal is to continue to provide most opportunity that our funding levels will allow for all of you. So I want you to pay particular attention to the slides I mentioned, the decreasing revenue for license fees, the inflation slide. So lock in when you're going to see slides, and I know people hate PowerPoint, but I'm telling you, this is really important for you to understand. I know you're here today to come and speak, many of you, and we'd love to hear from you. because you care so much about the resources that you've been able to utilize. So thank you to all of those who called me and wrote the commissioners about your passion. I'll tell you, I actually was really impressed with the waterfowl hunters. Very different crowd, and I didn't have anybody yell at me. I didn't have anybody, which is not normal, right? I didn't have anybody yell at me, and all the emails I got were very genuine and said, how can we help? You know, these areas mean a lot. They're heritage for Michigan. It's a huge opportunity for new hunters, all of that, and said, you know, we'd be willing to help in any way. We'll pay more, or we'll go back to dailies, or we'll go back to helping volunteer. So I appreciate that. That was a refreshing opportunity for me to talk with many of you. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to the folks at the table here, and then I'll talk a little bit at the end.
Thanks, Shannon. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for being here. Again, I'm Kristen Phillips, so I am the Administrative Deputy Director, the second Deputy Director. Shannon's responsible for, you know, the natural resource, the resource divisions, and my job is to support the administrative division. So our finance and budget, lands and facilities, marketing and outreach, and our museum system, which includes our cultural resources. And so my job is to make sure all of those support functions align and support all of the resource functions and the priorities of the organization. So, and I'm here, like Shannon mentioned, we're looking to backfill our financial officer, and so I'm filling in on some of those. Some of you folks that have known me for a while know that my background is in marketing, and so that's why I've got Jason Crandall, our budget officer here. He's the brains of our operation. He's going to talk in a little while about and fill in details on our fiscal year 27 budget, which takes effect October 1. So I'm here to fill in a little bit more. We've been getting a lot of questions about our budget. You see bits and pieces in the media, and it raises a lot of questions. So I'm going to try to fill in or color in a little bit more detail on some of what Shannon was explaining about the challenges that we're facing. So we talk a lot about, if I can multitask here. We talk a lot about our triple challenges. Shannon will sometimes say our triple whammy of the challenges of our budget, right? So the first one is around, our license revenue is flat, or it's declining as we're seeing that decline in hunters. The second one, our costs have gone up due to inflation. You just Google, I mean, Shannon gave the number, but if you Google the inflation since 2014, it'll show across the board about an average of a 40% decline. Certain industries have increased more than others. And also the other thing that we're dealing with now, because we've been deferring repairs and maintenance, now we're dealing with emergency repairs, which cost more than had we been maintaining and repairing all along the way. So that and responding to things like floods and fires and lightning strikes that, take up some of our funds that we had been intending to use in other places. Also want to point out before I get to the slides, some of the slides I'm showing, the slides that Jason's going to show, the numbers are big. We often get the question, your budget's so big, why do you need more? So Shannon started to touch on, we have a lot of restricted funds. The majority of the funds that the DNR has are restricted for very particular purposes or they're for single time use for infrastructure repairs or for replacing equipment. And Jason will explain that for our next year's budget. We can't use them for filling staffing positions or for ongoing programs. The other reason they're big, we have our 6 fish hatcheries, 20 million fish a year. That's a big number. They're stocked all over the state. Our fisheries folks just updated me. We're approaching $1.5 million for the cost of fish food this year. That's gone up quite a bit. Just the utilities for just those locations, $1 million. The technology, the vendor that we use to fulfill licenses, is $3 million a year. About 7.5% of all of our license sales, the retailers that sell our licenses, they keep that money. It's about $2.5 to $3.5 million a year they keep as commission for selling. The license stock, that little piece of paper that everybody prints or that you buy in the retailer, put in your wallet and throw away, we have to buy more every year. to $500,000. So if you really think about, what it costs to run a house, what it costs to run a family farm, we have over 100 state game areas. We need seed, fertilizer, we have mowers, tractors, other equipment that all needs gas. That's all gone up. We have fences, we have driveways that need gravel. I'm going to scoop Keith a little bit. He's going to tell you that we spend about $4 million on those 7 managed waterfowl areas. That's a big number. So our numbers are big because we have big responsibilities. We have hundreds of thousands of acres of land that we manage for hunting, 11,000 inland lakes, 50,000 miles of rivers, and we have all the Great Lakes. So that's just a little setup for this. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our Game and Fish Protection Fund. So this is the primary fund that supports our hunting and fishing activities. It is a restricted revenue source, meaning it can only be used for hunting and fishing activities or things that support those activities. There's 2 main sources of revenue that go into this fund. And so that 61.7 million, 66%, that's license sales. And we look at that as our salary. That's our incoming revenue every year, a source of income. Ideally, in a perfect world, this would be enough to cover all of our expenses. But that's been the same or declining since 2014. That 27%, the investment revenue, so back in the 80s, some really, really smart people created the Game and Fish Trust Fund. And that was intended to be another source of revenue. And we compare that to like a savings account. We do withdraw a little bit on that every year to support. But we've been forced to rely on that more and more for ongoing operations. And Treasury manages that account for us. And that investment revenue, that's not predictable, it's not stable. In a perfect world, we would use that for just infrastructure for one-time things because it's not predictable. But because of inflation, we have been relying on that more and more for just ongoing operations. And there's a risk involved with us doing that. So license sales revenue. So this is just the past 5 years. And revenue, we talked about that a lot. You guys have seen the slides over the years. Across the nation, states are seeing a decline in hunting in particular. And that's really due to baby boomers that are aging out of the activity. All of our data shows us that once somebody hits about 70 plus years old, they leave hunting and don't come back, and we're not seeing young people join the sport at the same rate. Michigan, like I think Shannon mentioned, we've seen about a 2% decline in the number of hunters every year over the past 15 years. Some exceptions you can see on the slide. So fiscal year 2021, that was actually October of 2020, and that was a bump from COVID. Remember, everything was shut down. The only thing people could do was go outside. We did see a bump there in our hunting and fishing license participation. And then again in 25, if you remember last year, there was a lot of media coverage about a potential government shutdown and rumors that the DNR wasn't going to be selling licenses. So a lot of people bought early. They bought before October 1, so that was a pull ahead of our sales that typically would have taken place in November, which would have been the next fiscal year. So we're expecting this year to be a little bit down, but we actually are already seeing a pull ahead sales on this year. Back in May, when the commission was debating about the $1 versus $2, and talking about being grandfathered in on your license purchase for the combo, we saw a big bump in May during a commission meeting, people buying licenses. So we're already seeing pull ahead for this year, but we are expecting that there will be a change, negative effect on our revenue as people switch from a combo to a one deer tag down the road. So this slide shows that the effect that inflation has had on our buying power. You consider that our salary, our license revenue has been the same since about 2014. And just, I guess, think about it like this. So, 2014, let's just say we could afford 100 pounds of fish food. Now we can only afford 74 pounds of fish food. So that means we either have to stock fewer fish because we can't afford to feed them, or we spend a higher proportion of our budget on fish food at the expense of other things, which is what we've been doing, not replacing equipment, not fixing, roofs and things like that. It's actually a bad example because in reality, our fish folks are telling us our fish food costs have tripled since 2021. Just wanted to give it a visual of what that has meant for us from our budget. So in order for us to be able to continue raising and stocking the same number of fish, again, just an example, we've trimmed in other areas, so we haven't been filling positions. We've not been replacing equipment or keeping up with maintenance. So a couple other examples. So back in 2014, the average or the median home cost in Michigan was about $125,000. Today it's $266,000. If you went to McDonald's in 2014 and you bought a quarter pounder with cheese meal, $5.99, and today it's $11.99. If you went to the movies in 2014, your ticket was $8, and now it's $16. That's our costs are doing the same thing, and our salary, our revenue has been the same or decreasing over that same time. So, like I mentioned, because we have not gotten additional revenue, we've been forced to scale back. Like I said, fewer staff or not filling positions. In some cases, we're posting positions, but we're only filling them internally so we can have folks shift to other jobs or other work that we think is a higher priority. I mentioned delaying replacing equipment and delaying maintenance and repairs. And so now we're experiencing the effects of that. So a leaking roof at a fish hatchery turns into a collapsing ceiling. Not replacing or repairing a dike means that we have a dike failure at Shiawassee, and I think we've mentioned before all the 200 plus dams that we have, and they're over 60 years old, and most of them are in poor condition, so they're deteriorating. So now what? You're going to see in the budget, like Shannon mentioned, that Jason's about to show you, we did get a bump in some areas of our budget, and it's going to give the impression that the overall budget went up. And we get asked that a lot. Your budget went up. Why do you still have all of these issues that I just showed? Those bumps in the budget are one-time fixes. And that money is intended to be used to make some desperately needed infrastructure repairs and some maintenance. It's a drop in the bucket. It's not going to meet all of our needs, but it will really help in some of our areas of the state. So I think with that, I guess, well, I'll say one last thing. Because there wasn't an increase in our license fees, and we can't depend and project that our investment revenue is going to go up, we have to predict that it's going to be at the same level or less. So we're projecting that our salary, our overall spend on game and fish next year is going to be lower than what it is now. So we have to continue to retract as an agency to stay within that game and fish fund. So we're continuing to have difficult conversations, looking at every position. Like Shannon mentioned, we don't maybe sit around the kitchen table, we sit around the conference room table and we talk about, with a 3% decrease in our budgets next year, what are we gonna still do? We also try to look out 3 years in advance. So we might be able to afford something next year, but we have to look out, 3 years. If we're going to fill a position, if we can't fund that position for the next 3 years, then we're not going to fill it. So, so with that, I'm going to hand it over to Jason to give the overview of our fiscal year 27 budget.
All right. I'm Jason Crandall. I'm the current budget officer for the DNR. It's a pleasure to be with you today. So I'd like to talk just a little bit about the fiscal year 27 budget. So this would be the budget that was just passed a few months ago by the legislature, signed by the governor. As was mentioned, this is the budget that would go into effect October 1st of this year. So a couple of things I'd like to highlight as we talk about the budget for next fiscal year for the DNR. So initially, in the governor's recommendation concerning the fiscal year 27 budget, there were several investments included connected with fee proposals. So as was mentioned, there was a fee proposal being discussed to adjust hunting and fishing license fees. And you can see a proposed investment of almost $29.5 million there. Likewise, there was a fee proposal being discussed regarding watercraft registration fees to adjust those, and about almost a $7 million investment connected with those. As was mentioned, there was no movement on those fee proposals. So the hunting and fishing license fees, as was mentioned, those haven't been adjusted since 2014. On the boating side, those boating registration fees, they haven't been adjusted since roughly 1993. So those fees have not changed in some time. Without action on those fee proposals, as you can see in Public Act 21 of 26, which is the fiscal year 27 budget, none of those investments were included. So unfortunately, there was no action on those fee proposals. But that said, there were some positives regarding the 27 budget. So if you look at the context of the budget as it moved through the process, as is typical, the governor has her recommendation, there's a House version, there's a Senate version, and then those get negotiated and worked out, those items of difference between the different versions. Well, particularly on the House side, there were pretty significant cuts that have been proposed. And you can see here, on the general fund side, a $25 million reduction had been proposed, essentially eliminating all general fund from law enforcement division and eliminating all general fund from wildlife division. Those were proposals that were on the table. You can see in the final product, the only ongoing general fund reduction was $100,000 in our cultural resource area. So again, significantly less than what had been proposed in one of the versions. Also, you can see in the House version, they have proposed $36 million in additional cuts to other program areas, all from state restricted funding. Those reductions would actually ended up in the budget, roughly $5.5 million. Some of that, some excess federal authorization that we didn't need, some restricted funding that we had actually asked for that to be scaled back based on available revenue. On the employee side, proposal to cut 233 employees, no staffing cuts in the actual enacted budget. And then also the Nature Awaits program, which is the program that allows kind of fourth graders to attend, to visit state parks. A really good program that's getting some momentum there. That was eliminated in the budget proposals, but then reinstated on a one-time basis in the actual budget that was passed. So again, some positive things, particularly when you look at what could have been. Certainly, I think we landed in a better spot in the final enacted budget in many respects.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Can you tell me what cultural resources is?
Yeah, sure. So cultural resources is it would be the archaeology, maybe Chris could even give a better explanation, but it's the historical. So if there's projects that need to be done, there's archaeological review and other things that need to be done. And so that would fund some of those functions. The appropriation itself is larger. So 100,000 is a slight reduction.
Don't forget, we have the History Center, so that's what that is. Commissioner Walters, our History Center.
Right.
Mhm.
So just a quick look here at the 27 budget, if you look in terms of size and funding source. So the budget that was passed, roughly $572 million. As was mentioned, these seem like big numbers, but there's a great deal that's managed with these resources. You can see that the majority of that funding comes from state restricted funds. So 70% of the funding is from state restricted funding sources. So think of funds like your Game and Fish Fund or your Forest Development Fund or Park Improvement Fund. These have very distinct revenue sources and very distinct allowable uses. So they can only be used for certain purposes. That's the majority of our funding. It's from user fees. It's the user pay model. So the majority of the funding comes from that. Then you can see that almost 20% of our funding comes from federal sources. There is an element of risk there with some of our federal funding. Some of the uncertainty at the federal level, whether it's in changes in terms and conditions or other things, just uncertainties, that does create some risk in our federal funding and something we're closely monitoring going forward. That's roughly 20% of our budget in different federal grants, federal funding. And then you can see a slice there of general fund. So general fund would be your general tax revenue. So it'd be from income tax, sales and use tax. This revenue is more unrestricted. It can be used for more purposes. It's not restricted like our user fee funds. but you can see, roughly $63 million, about 11%. But just to put that in context, if you look at the state budget as a whole and general fund as a whole and how that's appropriated, the DNR slice of that general fund is about 0.5%. So we're just a fraction, less than 1% of the overall general fund budget. So very little general fund, very little general tax money actually goes to the DNR. The majority of the funding is from state restricted funds, from user fees, and from really federal funding sources. So that gives you a little bit of context there in terms of what the budget looks like going into next year. And then just to highlight a few notable investments. So you'll see a list of these. I'm just going to comment on a couple of these here. If you look toward the top there, $17.7 million related to gas tax revenue. So you may recall that earlier this year, there was adjustment made in the gas tax. That fee was increased to raise money for roads. There is a portion of the gas tax that actually comes to the department. So it's the recognition that watercraft, ORVs, snowmobiles, they all consume gas as well. So there's 2% of the gas tax revenue comes to the department to use in particular funds, and it'll go to the Waterways Fund, the Snowmobile Trail Improvement Fund, and our Recreation Improvement Funds for recreational projects. So with that increase in the gas tax revenue, that means some more money coming into those particular funding sources. So what does that allow us to do? What allows us to start making a little bit of a dent in a large infrastructure backlog that exists in our boating infrastructure, whether it's state boating projects, also some local boating projects. So it allows us to make some investments in those infrastructure needs, which are significant. Also, some funding for snowmobile grant programs and for our recreational trails. Another large investment you'll see there, another $9 million, a little over $9 million there for state park repair and maintenance. Again, I know you're all aware of the significant backlog that's existed in our state parks with their infrastructure needs. This is just recognizing that there is some additional revenue available from investment revenue and also some oil and gas revenue in our park endowment fund. So majority of that is from park endowment funding related to good investment revenue there. I'll just move down the list. The other item I'll highlight, wetland restoration, enhancement, and acquisition. So you'll see $1 million there. So that is the only item here on this list that is related to game and fish funding. So when we're talking about revenue from hunting and fishing license sales and those kind of things, the thing to understand here is this is a capital outlay. So this is for infrastructure, strictly for acquisition, restoration, enhancement. So if your waterfowl license, which is $12, $9 of that goes into a fund called the Waterfowl Hunt Stamp Fund. That fund by law, so those funds are to be used strictly for restoration, enhancement, and acquisition of wetlands for the benefit of waterfowl. These funds cannot be used for the operation of managed waterfowl areas. So there is a portion of the $12 fee from your waterfowl license, it's $1.93, it's very specific in law, that goes into a separate fund, which is our waterfowl fees fund. And those funds are designated by law to be used for the management of managed waterfowl areas. So I just wanted to put that in context. This $1 million here is for wetland restoration, enhancement, and acquisition. It can't be used for managed waterfowl areas. So as there's revenue that builds up in that fund, we ask for an investment to be able to use that for enhancement and restoration projects for wetlands. So those are some highlights on the ongoing investments. I mentioned just a few things on the one-time side. So on the one-time investments, there are a mixture of things here. So you'll see a few items here that are connected with game and fish funding. So this would be revenue from hunting and license fees and investment revenue. So let me just mention that. So there's a few items on here. So the state game and wildlife area infrastructure, your fisheries infrastructure, cormorant population management, and fisheries equipment. Those are the four that are funded with game and fish. But it's important to understand this revenue, it's one time. This is really coming from one-time investment revenue. We lack the resources from hunting and fishing license revenue to be able to do these infrastructure. So as we have revenue from investments, which, as has been mentioned, is a little bit unpredictable. But as we have that on a one-time basis, we try to chip away at those infrastructure needs. So put a little bit money toward some of those needs at the state game and wildlife areas, or the fisheries, the hatcheries, and some of those needs. So this is just simply trying to chip away at that infrastructure backlog a little at a time with some one-time investment money that's been generated. The other investments that you see here are general fund investments, so one-time investments, whether it's Nature Awaits, your Whitefish Recovery, Hartwick Pines, and the State Water Trail organizations. And then, as is typical, when the budget is passed, there are often we'll call them adjustments for the current budget year. And so what you see here are a number of one-time investments that were included for the current fiscal year 26, the year that we're currently in. And so a couple noteworthy items here. So at the top of the list here, you'll see $45 million for the Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund. This is for those projects that were recommended by the board, the Trust Fund Board, acquisition and development projects for outdoor recreational projects. So really good news that there was funding provided for those projects. That benefits a lot of local communities. Also, you'll see there $26 million that's going to stand out there for fisheries, wildlife infrastructure projects, including dams. So again, this goes back to just what I said before, one-time investment revenue, because we've been fortunate enough the last couple of years that we've had some good investment returns. So trying to take some of that investment money and put it towards some of those infrastructure needs. So that's what you're seeing there, whether it be on the fisheries side, wildlife side, and there's just extensive needs as it relates to dams as well. So that's where the majority of the one-time money, again, you'll see that gas tax show up again there too. That's just recognizing that there's some revenue that's going to be generated from that gas tax increase in the current year, again, for more boating projects, snowmobile trail projects, and those sorts of things. So what I'd like to do now is I'm going to pass it over to Keith, and he's our assistant chief from our wildlife division. He's going to talk more specifically about managed waterfowl areas and how those work and how some of the numbers work related to those.
Good morning. As Jason mentioned, I'm Keith Kentai, Assistant Chief of Wildlife Division. It's my pleasure to share some information with you on our managed waterfowl areas. These places have been front and center over the last couple weeks as we are trying to have conversations about our capacity to continue with services that we've traditionally provided. Michigan's managed waterfowl areas are some of the brightest jewels of our state game and wildlife area system. Scattered across southern Michigan, these remarkable places make up only 7 of the 113 state game and wildlife areas, and just 7% of the land managed by Wildlife Division, but their impact is extraordinary. They offer world-class hunting and bird watching. They protect our communities by naturally controlling floods, filtering water, recharging groundwater, and preserving rare coastal wetlands. And just as importantly, these are cherished places where thousands of residents and visitors find adventure, camaraderie, accomplishment, and a deep connection to nature. Like many of our state game and wildlife areas, our managed waterfowl areas were purchased and first improved in the 1940s and 50s using a combination of federal Pittman-Robertson funds, state game fund, recreational bonds, special legislation, and other minor funding sources. The limited entry managed waterfowl hunt program we know today took shape in the 1960s and 70s, created to reduce overcrowding, improve hunter safety, balance hunter distribution, and enhance the overall hunting experience. Over the decades, through changing waterfowl populations, evolving management practices, and even the disruption of COVID, the program has continued to adapt. Under land use orders of the director, permits are required to enter managed hunt zones within managed waterfowl areas, and the department maintains the authority to issue those permits in the manner that best supports safe, fair, and high-quality hunts. Hunter participation in managed waterfowl areas peaked in the 1970s, yet these areas remain deeply valued, drawing 10,000 to 12,000 waterfowl hunters each year. Managed waterfowl areas are among the most intensively managed lands in the entire state game and wildlife area system. Complex, dynamic landscapes that require constant attention, precision, and expertise. Controlling water and improving habitats across thousands of acres demands massive infrastructure, hundreds of miles of levees, pumping stations, water control structures, supply and drain ditches, access roads and gates, bridges, boat ramps, and parking lots, every piece working together to shape these wetlands that hunters and wildlife depend on. And keeping this infrastructure functioning takes significant ongoing investment. We rely on heavy equipment, excavators, backhoes, bulldozers, graders, dump trucks, tractors, planters, sprayers, boats and trucks, and skilled operators to conduct the annual maintenance, repairs, and habitat work these areas require. Each year, we plant thousands of acres of fall foods like corn and buckwheat for seasonal flooding, while also managing natural vegetation through careful, science-driven water level adjustments. These actions create the diverse habitat conditions that support quality waterfowl hunting and healthy wetland ecosystems. We continually strive to improve the management of these areas. Over the last 2 years, the division has been working with the public to develop revised management plans for each of our managed waterfowl areas, with the goal of clarifying long-term habitat and recreation priorities and our long-standing commitments. Just as important as the work itself is the people behind it. Our team are passionate waterfowlers themselves who care deeply about these places. They take immense pride in operating our managed wetland area, our managed waterfowl areas, going above and beyond to ensure that these places remain healthy, productive, and accessible to the public. And we don't do this work alone. We depend on strong partnerships to make all of this possible. Sharecropping agreements help us stretch limited resources, and long-standing support from dedicated sportsmen's groups, including Shiawassee Flats Citizens and Hunters Association, St. Clair Flats Waterfowlers, Fish Point Wildlife Association, the Michigan Waterfowl Association, Waterfowl USA, and Ducks Unlimited, provides essential volunteer power, advocacy, and on-the-ground support. We could not operate Michigan's managed waterfowl areas at the level we do without these partners. As Kristen mentioned, our annual investments in managed waterfowl areas exceed $4 million, with each area requiring roughly $400,000 to $1 million to operate and maintain. These annual investments include about $1.5 million in contract supplies and materials needed to keep wetland and access infrastructure and habitat projects functioning. Staffing accounts for roughly $1.7 million, supporting 2 to 3 full-time employees per area, along with seasonal staff who assist with essential summer field work. We invest an additional $500,000 to $750,000 each year in major maintenance repairs, funded primarily through waterfowl capital outlay, as Jason mentioned, which we'll speak a little bit more about in a minute. And another $250,000 to $500,000 is dedicated annually to major equipment repairs and replacement to keep our heavy machinery safe and operational. Most of this work is funded through the Game and Fish Fund, about 50%, and Pittman Robertson dollars, about 40%, both of which, as has been discussed, face ongoing financial pressure. Waterfowl licenses generate less than $700,000 annually. Split between the 2 restricted funds that Jason talked about, that's approximately $500,000 for waterfowl capital outlay and just $114,000 annually to fund area operations. Years of insufficient funding have led to a backlog of more than $10 million in deferred major maintenance and capital improvement needs at our managed waterfowl areas. This includes miles of levees that do not meet Eagle Dam safety standards, dated pumps, culverts, and bridges, as well as aging field offices and storage buildings, many now more than 50 years old. In total, Wildlife Division has at least a $75 million backlog in major maintenance and capital improvement needs across all the lands that we administer for the public. So where does all of this leave us? About 2 weeks ago, we made the difficult announcement that 4 of our managed waterfowl areas, Fish Point, Nonquin Point, Shiawassee River, and Harsons Island, can no longer support 7-day-a-week, twice-a-day draws, simply because we do not have the staff to do it. As we've talked with hunters and partners since then, as Shannon has mentioned, a few messages have come through loud and clear. First, people care deeply about our managed waterfowl areas and their traditions. And second, many people don't fully understand the constraints of our budget nor the limits that come with the funding sources we rely on. As has been discussed extensively this morning, the DNR operates one of the most complex budgets in state government. More than 85% of our funding is tied up in dozens of state and federal restricted accounts, each with its own revenue stream and legal spending restrictions. That means we have almost no legal ability to shift resources quickly when unexpected needs or crises arise. For Wildlife Division, the pressure is even greater. Our work depends almost entirely on state hunting and fishing license dollars and federal Pittman-Robertson funds, both of which have declined sharply. We've lost more than 12 million in purchasing power from stagnant license fees and another 11 million in PR from reduced federal excise taxes. As a result, our operating budget has been cut nearly in half over the last 5 years. Our current staffing reflects this reality. We have 60 fewer full-time employees than we did in the late 1990s, including lost positions that manage waterfall areas, and a 30% reduction in temporary staff. We're operating with roughly 20 vacancies currently. 3 of these positions are essential to keep our managed waterfall areas functioning. Most of our hiring is suspended, and budget limits may restrict us to internal reshuffling rather than new hires. Moving people around might keep one site afloat, but it's a stopgap. Without the ability to fill these roles strategically and promptly, the division and the department will need to continue to cut programs and services. Luckily, our dedicated partners are stepping up to help with an emergency solution for fall draws, and we are deeply grateful and relieved. But that's a temporary patch on a leak. It's not a permanent fix. If we want to protect the hunting traditions we value, if we want to maintain the wetlands that safeguard our communities, if we want to ensure that Michigan's Wildlife Division and the DNR can continue to deliver the conservation work people depend on, we need to come together and advocate strongly and consistently for sustainable conservation funding. This is not just the department's challenge. It's a Michigan challenge, and it will take Michigan's voices to solve it. We're asking each of you to stay engaged, speak up, and help us make sure these vital places and the people who care for them have the resources they need for the future. Let's work together to secure a funding system that matches the importance of the lands we steward and the traditions we treasure.
Thank you, Keith. I'm going to bring up one of the partners that helped in this endeavor. Kyle Green's here from the Greenway Conservation Club and used his platform on social media to bring all the partners together, as well as those that called me personally. So why don't you have a seat, Kyle? He's going to speak to what we did and obviously where we're at as of today. So thanks, Kyle, for being here.
Absolutely. My name is Kyle Green. I am the CEO of the Greenway Conservation Club, as well as the Greenway Outdoors TV show on History Channel. I grew up in Michigan. I shot my first duck at a managed waterfowl area. I've gotten to know a lot of people through the Department of Natural Resources. I've got to know a lot of people that are just avid duck hunters. This last week has been a whirlwind, and I'm excited to say, and I hope this is a glimmer of hope, because I know this is a lot of negative information and it's, you know, budgets and those sorts of things, but I'm hoping this will be a glimmer of hope on how the public, the Department of Natural Resources, and the NRC can work together. And it's obviously, as we're going through these budgets and we're talking about them, there's almost like a defensive tone in the sense of like, I'm telling you, it's basic math. Like, look at this, because there is a bit of a distrust that has been built over time, and I've seen it since I was a kid, between the Department of Natural Resources and the people. And my hope is that through the projects that we work on together, that we can build that relationship back up, because at the end of the day, we are all in this together, and we are all a team, and we all need each other. So one of the overwhelming messages here today as well is talking about that 2% year after year after year after year. And everybody in this room cares deeply about the natural resources. They care deeply about, you know, hunting, fishing, trapping, the American and Michigan heritage that we have here. But we need to get more people involved in the outdoors. The outreach has to be a step up from everybody in this room at every level, because 60% or more of hunting and fishing licenses are sold to white males over the age of 55. I love those guys, but they're not going to be with us forever. So we have to replace that demographic, get the younger generations involved, and that we all have to be held accountable for that. So I want to thank everyone today, you know, that is having these conversations, the people that showed up today. And I'd like this piece to be a glimmer of hope and excitement and something that is saved. First and foremost, if you been living under a rock the last 24 hours. Fish Point, Nyaquin Point, Shiawassee Flats, and Harson's Island, where I shot my first mallard, are all going to be going back to 7 days a week, 2 duck draws per day. So a big win for the waterfowl hunters. We're very excited about that, but it couldn't have happened without some incredible people. So State Representative Ken Borton, State Representative David Martin, I met with them directly. I met with Shannon Lott, who is now one of my good buddies, and we talked through a possible fix for this. And that possible fix is to bring in, and I don't know all the lingo, but I'll just say part-time, even though I know for sure that's not the right code, but we'll say 8 part-time employees, 2 at each managed waterfowl area to make sure we can go back to how it was. And we did that through raising $80,000. And of course, the cooperation of State Representative Ken Borton and David Martin and the Department of Natural Resources coming together. We met on Monday. It was a beautiful meeting. And I will say this, the positivity in that room and the way that everyone was coming together to help solve this problem because they wanted to solve the problem for the duck hunters. It was like looking behind the curtain and getting to see that everybody's like, no, actually, we're all on the same team here. It was special, and it gives me hope for this state, truly. And for the future of it to be in that room. But this isn't possible without that $80,000. So I'd like to just take 1 second to let everyone know who put in that $80,000. Because I don't matter, Greenway Conservation Club doesn't matter, the DNR doesn't matter, nothing matters unless these people stepped up. So first and foremost is the Harson's Island Waterfowl Hunters Association. Mike Wessels, Dan Matska, and John Zenz were incredibly helpful. I had conversations with all of them, and they put in $20,000. Shiawassee Flat Citizens and Hunters Association, Brian Cease and I talk about 16 times a day. Colton Beckman introduced me, and I know a lot of those people are here to have their voices heard as well, and they put in $20,000. Ducks Unlimited stepped up, and it wasn't a fight. You know, you go to these wild game dinners and you go to these situations, you're like, is the money really going to? They call me and say, what do you need? What do you need? It wasn't a fight. It wasn't difficult. It wasn't hard. And they chipped in $20,000. I know Delta Waterfowl is here today, and they're putting in $10,000. And then the Michigan Duck Hunters Association, Drew Dieters especially was helpful with this, put in the remaining $10,000. Now we're going to be selling some shirts and doing some fundraising to try and give funds back to those organizations so that they can use it for what they were going to use it for. But I want to thank each and every one of them for stepping it up. As a kid that learned to duck hunt in Michigan, as a kid that loved managed waterfowl areas, as somebody who cares passionately about Michigan, our natural resources, thank you for stepping up. And let this be a lesson to everybody how much waterfowl hunters actually care, how important these managed waterfowl areas are. Understand that they are the best of everything our state really is. When it comes to managed waterfowl areas, you can't think of a better example than the managed waterfowl areas as far as genuine, beautiful interactions between the Department of Natural Resources and the people, incredible wetlands for millions of ducks that use it every year. It's because of us they have the food and the travel to get where they're going. It's the great first experience for the duck hunter who's never been duck hunting before. It's a great experience for a duck hunter who's on his last leg and just needs an easy place to get out and go, and everyone in between. They're beautiful. I want to thank Shannon Lott for leading her team, and everybody that was up here talking today. They were all in the meeting as well. The spirit of it was positive, and I know a lot of people are here today to talk about the wetland wonders, and I think that that's awesome. Have your voice heard, but just know that when I was in that room, I wasn't met with pushback. I wasn't met with people that were trying to add problems to it. They solved it together. So we need to celebrate the good when the good is here, and this is a win for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle.
Thank you, Kyle.
Well, Kyle, I have a question. For you, Kyle. Can I ask you just a couple questions?
Oh.
Okay, so how many hunters do you and your groups that support this represent?
When you say that, what do you mean? We
Like-
started this company like 8 days ago.
Well, I mean, the group that you represent, your platform, followers, that kind of thing.
Well, that sort of thing. With the Greenway Outdoors itself, we average a little over 1.5 million views per episode. So you can multiply that however you want on the History Channel. Through our vlog series, podcast series, we do millions of impressions per week. As far as who those individuals are specifically, it's hard to track, but
So I'm curious too, with the number now being approximated, are you guys in support of that fee increase that the DNR is proposing? And what are you doing in those efforts?
I haven't begun those efforts yet. So I'm looking at the budgets, and that brings me to a good point too. is when you look at the budgets, and it was set up here too, that this is a Band-Aid, right? This is a fix for 1 year. This isn't the permanent fix. So I met with State Representative Ken Borton and David Martin again, even after, since we had the meeting on Monday, to talk about this 100% can't be the norm. I don't want to have this conversation next year. Managed waterfowl areas matter. We have to figure out a way to do it. And I think Shannon can attest to what she saw in the meeting as well, that they were like, yep, we'll fix it. We'll get together and we'll fix it. And we have momentum right now, right? So I'm going to stay on it. My goal is to get this problem solved fast so that next year we're not in the same meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Just some comments. Obviously, this is pretty problematic, right? I mean, it's great that the stakeholders stood up and stepped up. Amazing to see, but this is problematic. And what we're seeing is a direct impact on our users trying to enjoy the public resource. There was a slide that was shown earlier about a House proposal that showed a $19 million cut to the law enforcement division, along with a cut of 233 employees, which presumably would have impacted every division, including the law enforcement. To put a human face on this, just a few days ago, our conservation officers were involved with the rescue of 3 individuals. You take away the funding, you take away the personnel, those rescue operations become more and more difficult. These impacts have real life, everyday impact on all of us. We might not realize it, and we often take it for granted. Commissioner Walters is chair of the Wildlife Committee. I'm chair of the Fisheries Committee. We've been working on a little something, a resolution to get a funding increase, to share that resolution with our state partners. And Madam Chair, I don't know if this is just a good time as any, instead of saving it for later, to go ahead and just do the resolution now, or would you rather wait till later? Sounds good.
Just a comment. Thank you for stepping up and being the spokesperson for all the various groups related to duck hunting. It takes folks like you that take the leadership to do what you've accomplished. And I think that's a massive step forward. And duck hunting and the waterfowl and the wetlands are the tip of the iceberg. This is not just a duck hunting problem. This is problematic across all wildlife and all fisheries in this regard. So your leadership is not taken lightly. So thank you.
Thank you. That means a lot.
All right, thank you, Kyle. So to wrap up, one number on that slide, I want you to remember in that slide deck, $114,000. That's the amount of money that goes to operations for waterfowl areas. Remember the long slide showing what all the costs are to operate those areas. So that's a broken funding model, okay? When we tell people we only get $1.93 per waterfowl license to run, that means staff, operations. People are like, that doesn't make any sense. How did that get there? So that's been a long-standing thing that needs to be adjusted. And this is my 30th year in the DNR. For those of you that don't know me, it's my 3rd time trying to get through a license fee structure change. And it is so difficult. And a lot of times I don't understand why the natural resources of Michigan are at the back seat. They deserve better. You deserve better, the people that use them. And frankly, the people that don't pay in the system need to come to the table. So that's part of the conversation we had at the legislature this week as well. I used to work some of those managed areas early in my career. I was a seasonal for 7 years before I ever got a permanent job. My first permanent job was a wildlife technician at Point Mouillet State Game Area. That's a managed wetland area. So I understand it hurts deeply for me. I bleed green. I've been here 30 years. It hurts deeply for me. It hurts internally, it hurts externally, and it hurts personally. And I want you all to know that. Many of you don't even know we have the largest state forest system in the country. We have the largest state park system in the country. We have the Great Lakes, the largest freshwater system in the world. We have 11,000 inland lakes, 52,000 miles of rivers and streams. You're never more than 6 miles away from a lake, river, or stream in Michigan. We deserve better for our natural resources in Michigan. So I know you've heard our director talk about that in the past as well. And I hope that moving ahead, we'll see support when the legislature comes back into town so that we can have meetings ongoing and not have this be the end of the discussion. So thank you for that. All right, that ends our budget piece. We're going to move around a few things on the director's report here. I'm going to skip the scientific management resolution update. We're going to move that after public comment. And I'm going to move the Prairie River temperature redesignation after public comment. And we're going to have the Parks and Recreation Division folks come up to talk about a couple land use orders. I see Chris is here, Chris Stark, and our Assistant Chief of Parks, Tom Bissett.
All right, Deputy Director Lott, Chair Humphreys, Commissioners, thank you very much for the opportunity to come today and present a handful of land use order and wildlife conservation order amendments for the Parks and Recreation Division. My name is Chris Stark. I work with our regulatory unit. Sitting with me today is our Assistant Chief, Tom Bissett. So today we do have quite a few order amendments today, but I promise nothing's too hard hitting that we shouldn't be able to get through this in a pretty decent amount of time. So what we do as a unit is we look at various orders on an annual basis in an attempt to make sure that we're providing the right information to the public and the right tools for our staff to be able to manage our facilities. We try to do this once a year, bring these orders in a timeline that makes it so that we're not making any type of huge changes during the middle of our peak season. So a lot of these will have much more of an effect in the upcoming year than they do now. So the first amendment I'd like to present to you today is an amendment that will add some enforcement authority to authorized parking spaces. So across our system, we have some various parking spaces that are labeled for things such as maybe staff parking at a large state park day use area, such as maybe Ludington State Park. So someplace where staff can come in and have greater access for emergency responses, the ability to clean the restrooms and do other things such as that. We also have places where our harbor customers, they're staying overnight, they need a place to park their vehicles, and so those are signed in a similar fashion. So what this would do is it would just kind of codify the ability for our staff to enforce that. We do not want to have this be something that is used across the board and be an impediment to the public use of our facilities. And so we do have a process put in place where this will be looked at with some scrutiny by our supervision, our district supervision and division leadership to make sure that it's not something that becomes an impediment to the use, but just want to make sure that we have the ability to take care of this in situations where it happens. The next amendment is involving the Rice Creek property. The department acquired a 58-acre parcel in 2014 with funding from the Natural Resources Trust Fund. This property in Calhoun County includes 4,000 feet along the Rice Creek. It has been administered since 2014 through the Fisheries Division. It was main reason for acquiring was for trout stocking. However, it's been directly managed by the Calhoun Conservation District through a lease. As a fisheries facility, hunting has been prohibited on this property since our time that we acquired it. It's currently in the process of being transferred to the Parks and Recreation Division. And with that, it would become open to hunting of all kinds, just because of the different rules that we have on our facilities. The Calhoun County Conservation District was not necessarily in favor of the property becoming open to hunting. Because it's a small property, there's quite a bit of recreational development that has taken place on the property. However, it is located in an area where there's kind of there's not a lot of public hunting land in lands that are managed by the department. So conversations with our Wildlife Division and the Parks and Recreation Division, we were able to kind of come to a compromise with our partners in Calhoun County to prohibit basically the discharge of a firearm, but allowing the property then to remain open to archery hunting and trapping. So,
I have a question.
yes, absolutely.
Natural Resources Trust Fund has prioritized hunting. Do they still have that provision? And did you discuss it with the trust fund board?
So I don't really know. I don't have that information as this property was acquired in 2014 and was immediately at that point not open to hunting. So I wasn't in this position at that point in time. So I'm not qualified to answer that question right now.
If you would, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Next amendment that we're proposing, the Ionia Recreation Area in its field trial area was put up last year to be part of a group of parks that had some snowmobile prohibitions put in place. State park land is open to snowmobiles unless there's a land use order. We are proposing that this prohibition actually be removed. So we want to make sure that this portion of land remains open to snowmobiles. It was put in there in a little bit of a clerical error, and so this is simply a correction, not a change in practice. We are ensuring that this portion of Ionia State Recreation Area remains open to the use of snowmobiles, which is supported by local staff, the field trial users, and everybody that we've been in contact with.
How long has it been closed?
It has been closed administratively for 1 year. It has been open historically. We are just correcting a clerical error that happened the last time the order came before.
Thank you.
Yep. The next one, Leelanau State Park. So this is about our piping plover restrictions that we have at the park. So there is currently a land use order in place that identifies much of the property that we administer along the Cathead Bay shoreline to be closed when there's nesting birds present and to have prohibitions in place for the possession of dogs during certain times of the year when these endangered birds may nest. This is just one of several areas within our state park system where we have these types of protections in place. However, when looking at the properties of Leelanau State Park, it was noted that not all of the area of Cathead Bay was under the same protections. And so this proposal would add the remaining portions of Cathead Bay so that there is uniformity for the protection of this, federally endangered species. And then this change was supported by both state and federal partners and local constituent groups. So as you can see here on the map, Leelanau State Park has several portions of property along the bay. And we kind of felt that not only was it important for the protections of this endangered species, it was also important to be able to explain this to our public and our guests, that if just the entire section of that land was under the same protections as opposed to trying to pull out a map and explain to them, where it is and where it isn't protected. We also had a section of land in the current order that actually has no boundary with Lake Michigan. So we're also cleaning that up and removing that from the order as well. The final land use order amendment has to do with alcohol restrictions at Pinckney Rec area. So especially in our southern portion of our park and recreation system, we do have some units that have some restrictions on alcohol. Some of those may be just at various locations within a park or a recreation area. Others may be across the entire unit or the entire park. This is another one similar to the Ionia Rec area where it's not going to be a change in practice. It was discovered by local staff that this one had been written kind of backwards over the last many years. And so it was meant to prohibit use of alcohol at the Silver Lake and Half Moon units, except for in shelters that were rented. The way it currently reads, it's prohibited at the rented shelters and open everywhere else. And that's not the way the staff have been enforcing it, the way that the guests have been understanding it. And so this isn't a change in practice. It's just clearing up the language to meet what the intent of the original order was. Now moving into our wildlife conservation order amendments that we're proposing. The first one is involving Mitchell State Park in Wexford County. So as a state park, Mitchell State Park is defaulted to be closed to hunting unless opened through an order. And so what we're proposing here is we recently acquired 207 acres of land at William Mitchell State Park, and we are proposing that land become opened. Is that part of the intent of why the land was purchased was to extend these hunting opportunities, and so we need to make sure that we codify that in order to make that happen. While this order is also open, we're also going to go ahead and officially close the modern campground area. So the more developed areas of the park, which is a very small portion of the park. So the modern campground, the developed day use area, and the actual grounds of the Carl T. Johnson Hunting and Fishing Center. Those have been previously, they are closed under city ordinance, but for the sake of our guests to be able to read an order and understand that those are closed, we're cleaning that up while opening 207 acres to hunting. So as you can see here on the map, we have the existing lands that are open to hunting with the red square around it, and then we're adding those, which would be on the west side towards Lake Mitchell to the order of opening these lands to hunting. Similar situation at Waterloo Recreation Area. So as a recreation area, it is open to hunting unless closed through an order. So the opposite of what we have in our state parks. The vast majority of the land at Waterloo Recreation Area is open to hunting and trapping. The exceptions are those developed areas where we might have some safety concerns. And so this proposed amendment will open an additional 92 acres of land at the recreation area that were previously closed to hunting because the Cassidy Prison was there under a lease agreement with the Michigan Department of Corrections. That facility has been removed. The land back to a natural state, and therefore there is no longer a reason to have that area closed to hunting, and so we are proposing to open it. This was supported through recent general management plan process, including rigorous public comment. And then also while it's open, we are going to clean up the language that surrounds the portage unit for the hunting restrictions there. It's not really a net gain or loss in acreage, but if you read that order that's currently in place, it mentions landmarks that simply don't exist anymore. You know, it'll say all lands west or east of the old park entrance road, and things that even staff on site cannot recognize. And so how can we expect our public to do that as well? So we are updating the language in there to simply make it so that people can clearly understand where that is. And so if you look on here, you know, the red outline is the lands that are closed around the portage unit, which is a highly developed portion of the recreation area. And so we just have adjusted those lines to meet current landmarks so that both our guests and our public can understand better where those boundaries are. And then lastly, we just have a map of that Cassidy Lake unit. This has been historically closed to hunting due to the prison property, and we would like to make sure that that gets reopened now that the development is no longer there. And so with that, those are our order amendments, and I'd open up to any additional questions if anybody has any.
Any question? Commissioners? Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, guys. So we're going to adjust some things on the agenda so all of you that are here to speak quicker than waiting through all the rest of our presentation. So we're going to move the scientific management resolution update after public comment. We're going to move fisheries division regulatory recommendations after public comment. And we're going to move Prairie River Stream temperature redesignation after public comment. So we'll resume director's report then.
Actually, we'll probably move into approving or disapproving, taking action of one sort or another on the action items this month and then come back to it.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thanks to staff for adjusting our schedules. While Brooke is walking up here, she is going to update us or remind us of the guidelines for public appearances. It is 10:19, and we're going to start with individuals who signed up ahead of time. We're allotted 5 minutes each.
Good morning, everyone. For those of you that signed up before the end of the day last Friday, you have 5 minutes to give your comments today. And if you did not sign up but would like to provide comment, we have a sign-up sheet in the back. Just go ahead and sign up back there, and Victoria will get me your name. When you have 1 minute left, I'll hold up the 1 minute sign. When your time is up, I will hold up the time please sign, and we ask that you please bring your comments to a close. Just keep an eye on the time, and please state your name for the record. Thank you.
And write your name clearly, because I butcher names badly enough without having difficulty reading them. So thank you. All right, with that, Brian, you're up first.
We had 3 of us registered.
Please do.
Just a quick point of order. To get through everything, I'd like probably take 6 or 7 minutes for the three of us combined. Is that okay?
That's fine. In fact, we should have mentioned that parties of 3 or more can combine and we give you up to 10 minutes.
Cool. I'm going to amend our plan here. We have a prepared statement. We have a postscript, and because of the comments heard today, I'd like to save my last for some rebuttal on that. Please, some
Okay.
feedback for you.
Thank you.
Commissioners, we are speaking today as several waterfowl hunting stakeholder groups are on behalf of the Michigan Managed Waterfowl Hunting Areas, known as Wetland Wonders. It's a well-known fact that Michigan has lost 90% of its wetlands to development agriculture over the last 150 years. Comprising the most important remaining waterfowl habitat in our state, the MWHAs support vital needs of puddle ducks throughout the spring and fall migrations. Based on weekly MWHA reference counts, these highly productive wetlands provide over 6 million waterfowl use days during each migration period as ducks remain in the area for several weeks. Without the MWHA habitat, most ducks would migrate through Michigan in a matter of a few days, turning Michigan into a flyover state. Duck hunting throughout the state would be adversely affected. Our estimates are that without the MWHA refuge system, you would have 2 million waterfowl use days. So the waterfowl management areas triple the number of residence days of waterfowl in each migration. Our original purpose speaking today was to enlist the NRC in resolving terrible public policy announced on July 30th, which would have reduced hunting draws from 14 per day down to 5 per day, or 5 per week, 14 per week to 5 per week. The resulting 70% loss of hunting participation would have begun a death spiral for the managed fund support. However, it appears as though stakeholder initiative to privately fund this through Mr. Kyle Green and fund the 4 seasonal workers necessary, which has now been moved to 8. I'm aware of that. Has full support of the MDNR and the legislative process. The $80,000 cost has been pledged by several conservation organizations who raise funds annually for wetland habitat improvements. Now these funds are being diverted in the interest of saving the managed waterfowl hunting program. It took us 3 hours from Kyle's call out to have $80,000 committed from the stakeholder groups. 3 hours. As always, the phrase hunters pay for conservation applies in this case. And I'm going to ad lib quickly. All of your charts show we're bearing the bill for 75%. We always do. We thank Kyle Green for his leadership in bringing these parties together. Don't know how he did it. I tried for 6 weeks and failed. Kyle, thank you. The MWHAs were established by dedicated conservationists in the 60s and 70s. Our expectation is that the MDNR and yet legislature will use this breakthrough today to serve as motivation to rededicate Michigan's commitment to the managed wetland habitat and secure the funding needed for hunting through hunting license increases. We know that the cost of hunting licenses have not increased since 2014, while the cost of maintaining funds and wildlife habitat continues to track with inflation. For the record, we have supported and continue to support the license increase package. I want that very, very clear. In addition to waterfowl, our MWHAs provide key habitat for a number of threatened and endangered species. Without the needed funding, Michigan's incredible public waterfowl hunting opportunities are still living on borrowed time. Each of us owes future generations the opportunity to enjoy the same waterfowl hunting heritage which the MWAs have afforded generations of Michigan hunters for 65 years, with 2 per day, 7 days per week draws consistent except for the COVID year, which went down for 1 per day for 6 days. We urge the DNR to work with hunters as they face challenges and make tough decisions in the future. Hunters have invested heavily to build, maintain, and staff these wetland wonders, and we desperately need to build on past success to maintain vital wetlands for ducks, the hunters, and all Michigan citizens. I wrote a postscript after our prepared statement because I realize a lot of people don't know much about the managed hunting areas. To those who view managed wetland hunters as simply another budget line item for Michigan's extensive array of public lands, which we're all very proud of, okay? It's 25 to 30,000 acres between those. But please find the time to visit any of the wetland wonders during March or April as the spring waterfowl migration passes through Michigan.
bring binoculars, take a short walk on the refuge dikes which provide water control for the various impoundments. You will be astounded at the tens of thousands of birds, waterfowl and otherwise, who are feeding and resting during their annual migration to their nesting grounds. The incredible concentration of wildlife is solely because they find critical spring habitat necessary to sustain healthy body weight while enduring the rigors of long-distance flights. Without the Wetland Wonders spring water management for invertebrates, these birds would quickly move through the state, push through in a matter of days. They would arrive in the northern breeding grounds in too poor a condition to raise successful broods. The Wetland Wonders are far more than managed hunting units. They provide critical habitat for threatened and endangered species. Nesting eagle pairs at Shiawassee have become so numerous, I refer to them as white-headed crows. I've watched as many as 104 eagles in from one spot, standing in one place. It's phenomenal what we've accomplished for threatened and endangered species. Non-consumptive users recognize Wetland Wonders as some of Michigan's finest areas for birdwatching groups. No other Michigan public areas have a greater net benefit to wildlife than the Wetland Wonders. They must be understood and viewed in that light and protected in the interest of sustaining waterfowl and many other birds, reptiles, and local wildlife for future generations to cherish. End of prepared statements. As to what we saw here today and have seen, it was a message of managed decline. We don't accept managed decline. The waterfowl use days are critical to the habitat. The managed areas are why 6 million birds stay here at least a day, waterfowl use days instead of 2 million. You can't put a number on that. Those same managed waterfowl areas with your costs generated $10 million of local economic benefits. Hunters travel heavy, guys. We buy lots of shells, waders, hunting gears, boat licenses, repair tires, eat at restaurants, gas stations, etc. The Chamber of Commerce should be in here on the cost benefit ratio because $10 million of economic benefits are at risk in these 4 managed waterfowl areas. That needs to be a fact. The spring migrations, we have an obligation to these waterfowl. Public lands now represent the reason these waterfowl stop for 3 to 6 weeks in this area. You take that away, these birds blow through this state. Without refuges, they don't exist. We've got Shiawassee National Refuge and Seney up north. That's it. Okay, you take these away, and Michigan is a flyover state. The cost benefit is overwhelming in favor of these. As to hunters pay for conservation, took us 3 hours to get you your $80,000. Tell us what the best funding mechanism is. We'll get behind it. We'll sell it. Today and July 30th was one hell of a cattle prod that hit every managed waterfowl organization right in the heart. Okay, we'll be there for you. We'll get it funded. We'll work through Kyle Green. Trust me, we are going to become legislative liaisons for you to get that done. Thank you. Who gets our copies for each of the commissioners?
Thank you for the passion that you just possess.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
I want to point Thank you, everybody.
By the way, commissioners, I did get a copy of the letters they sent to the legislature on the license package.
For the record, I met Becky Humphreys on the dikes in 1981. That was the group in the game area running a dike reconstruction project down in 2020.
Yeah, we're both spring chickens.
Yeah.
Good morning, Commissioners. How are you? My name is Drew Dieters. I'm representing the Holland Fish and Game Club, a Holland organization of 625 members, outdoorsmen all. Not all duck hunters, but all hunters and fishermen. It seems as though saving the managed waterfowl hunting areas has a 1-year reprieve due to great efforts from Kyle Green of the Greenway Outdoors and Brian Cease of the Shiawassee Citizens and Hunters Association. In my lifetime, I have hunted waterfowl from Michigan to Manitoba to Arkansas to South Dakota to Nebraska to Iowa. All wonderful hunts, but none as great as the first week of the Michigan waterfowl season that I spent at Shiawassee River for many, many years. I have also hunted at Neonquin Point and Fish Point. These managed areas are the dream waterfowling opportunities here in Michigan. No finer spot for a combination duck and goose hunt in the state. Huge tracts of public land on these managed areas for duck hunters and goose hunters to enjoy. With civilization spread, we are losing hunting spots routinely. I live in Zeeland and Holland, and our Ottawa County growth is tremendous for the tax rolls and very detrimental for us hunters to find places to hunt. As civilization grows, these spots are even more important to migrating waterfowl and bird hunting waterfowlers. This political battle in bringing hunts down from 14 per week to 5 is unconscionable. Losing the premier waterfowling hunting areas in Michigan should never even be considered in the political chess that was played. These areas were developed by great conservationists looking for continued wetlands and looking out for continued wetlands and marsh loss, hunters, migrating fowl, and waterfowl reproduction. The bird watchers of the world have greatly benefited from them as well. Just a side note, I had the opportunity to drive through the Shiawassee Federal dike system there, and I have to imagine that every birder in the state has loved that. It is a beautiful place, and it's worth taking the time to do for those of you who haven't been there. The other group that's financially benefited from the managed areas are the merchants around each of these 4 areas. Motel, gas station, restaurant, sporting goods store owners have benefited millions of dollars as well. Please help us find a way that this destructive situation will never happen again. Help convince the legislators that a raise in license fees after 11 years is a good thing. All of our members will do what we can to our legislators in the area to make sure that they wake up on this situation as well. Everything around us has inflated the last few years, as have DNR expenses and salaries. License increase is a must, and we look forward to your help in getting that done. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Any questions? I know we're Dutchmen from Holland, but that's okay.
Philip.
Yeah.
Excuse me. You're up. Philip Whitten.
My name is Phil Whitten. I'm representing the Macatawa Bay Association, which is one of the chapters of Michigan Duck Hunters Association. Our individual chapter has over 300 members. I began my career as a waterfowl hunter over 45 years ago, as I was introduced to waterfowl hunting by an older mentor at a managed waterfowl area in Michigan. Michigan has a strong culture of waterfowl hunting throughout the state, and especially in the southeastern areas of Michigan where most of the wetland wonders are located. The numbers of hunters have declined in recent years, but there remains a strong core of us waterfowl hunters in our great state. Waterfowl hunters have been very generous with funding these wetland complexes. We, as waterfowl hunters, purchase licenses, buy state and federal hunting stamps, and pay into the Pittman-Robertson Act through our purchases. Hunters have also, in the past, paid daily or seasonal fees to support managed waterfowl hunting at the wetland wonder units. The managed waterfowl hunts in Michigan's wetland wonder units are the entry point for many young hunters, new adult hunters, and as well as for experienced hunters. The potential decrease in the number of available draws and hunts at these units per the July 30th directive of the Michigan DNR would have greatly been detrimental to hunters this season and would have been a future threat to Michigan's waterfowl legacy in upcoming years. It is a possible note that I got to mark out that it seems that there is
currently a plan to prevent this proposed great reduction in recreational opportunities for Michigan waterfowl hunters this year. To us waterfowl hunters, decreased opportunities to hunt and spend time in the marsh with friends and family is the loss of cherished times. The directive July 30th would have negatively affected working individuals and school-aged children greatly by decreasing the numbers of draws and hunts at managed areas on weekends. And we certainly want to do everything we can to prevent that from happening in the future. For the future, we need a more transparent and positive decision-making process between the DNR, their customers, us, Michigan's waterfowl hunters, and the NRC. This would ensure a consistent funding of flow to Michigan's wetland wonders to support, we do support, as others have stated, an increase in the fees of hunting licenses as well as other means of more steady funding if possible. However, we need a timely and positive flow of communication as well as a positive decision-making process between us, hunters, the DNR, and the NRC. This will allow us to work as partners. This would be a win-win situation, providing a consistent stream of funding for the managed waterfowl areas. Ultimately, it would allow for future program planning and a more seamless management of these facilities. I can only manage with the funding cut the way it has been, the way it was explained to us. I can't imagine how state game managers and wetland managers plan for upcoming years or make plans for, regardless of labor, buying seeds, plans with crop farmers, just making plans for ahead. So I thank you for listening and thank you for your time. Any questions?
Thank you. Caleb Dobbs. Okay. Thank you. B, you're up. She's not here. I didn't see her. I was looking for her earlier. Oh, she did. Okay. Iris Potter.
Good morning, Commissioners. Move this over.
Is it green? Push the button. So the bottom button, so it's green.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. Because this big thing was here and I don't know what it is. It's like an owl. And I was like, I don't think I'm
It is an owl
supposed to speak in
camera.
that. Good morning. I'm Iris Potter, co-founder of Kalamazoo Animal Advocates, of which we have many. I am here in hope that the public will hear or read about our views and you as well. Current DNR wildlife management projects include a recent proposal to hunt bears on Bois Blanc Island in our straits. What is the scientific data gathered by the DNR proving why it is a new bear hunting target since it has been banned since 1985? Simply to remain consistent with the other bear management units does not seem to be a valid reason, since there is no established population, just those bears who may migrate or have migrated with no specific population numbers available. Will there be a formal comment period as well, or just if someone reads media or goes to the website? We strongly oppose this change. Let these majestic beings be free there and not running from hunters. In reviewing the proposed changes to the 2009 Bear Management Plan, who specifically are, quote, the bear management stakeholders from whom you received input? When do you expect the public comment period for the updated plan? Under strategy 6.11 is changed from encourage agency and public input to develop recommendations with their input. This change particularly stands out because it appears as a theme of minimizing input from non-hunters and conservationists. Under strategy 6.12 and 3, ecoregions were removed and replaced with simply regions. They are targets. These are targets that are used to manage, protect, and restore natural environments based on shared ecological traits like climate, soil, and wildlife, rather than human-made political borders. This is a sad omission because eco-regional is a holistic view of our ecosystem. With regard to the WCOs for 2026 thus far, what stands out are no bag limits, extending hunting seasons, including the coyote season during denning, additional trapping, and increased use of dogs. What is the science-based data to back these orders? It would be excellent to read the research behind them. For example, with no bag limits on a species, it can lead to rapid overexploitation, severe population crashes, and the local extinction of vulnerable animal species. There are 14 species in Michigan that have no bag limits. This practice does not encourage conservation. Also, hopefully you can answer a few of my questions during the meeting. Regarding WCO 3 Amendment 8, trappers came to DNR asking for further changes. It would be so fair if non-consumptive advocates could weigh in like this and be heard when we say trapping is just plain wrong. If a state poll was conducted, I believe that a majority of Michiganders would oppose trapping. For example, Crystal Falls in the UP has banned trapping and poison use. The tides are turning. The time is now to protect all of Michigan's wildlife for all citizens, not just those who have official representative positions on NRC committees. Our public trust has not been met. It is truly worrisome and upsetting that advocates have asked for representation on behalf of non-consumptive Michiganders, but it has not happened yet. But hopefully it will soon. This is 2026, not 1966. Also, we continue to request call-in comments at these meetings, as was done during COVID, because not everyone can travel. Some people have disabilities, etc. We must coexist as stakeholders who pay taxes and fees, just as we all must learn to do more to coexist with our wildlife, not to always use hunting as an option. Michigan wildlife has a right to exist because they are still trying to keep our ecosystem in balance as humans push them to the edge. Tomorrow, August 13th, is International Wolf Day, dedicated to raising global awareness about wolf conservation, highlighting their critical role as apex predators in maintaining healthy ecosystems. Let's take a moment to appreciate them in their glory. Do note that we are pleased with your new Land Use Order Amendment 6 to enforce protection of the piping plover nesting site at Leelanau State Park. I have been there, and it is a beautiful spot to be protected for these amazing birds. Thank you.
Thank you. Mercy. Oops.
As you just heard, I'm Marcy Terwilliger, and my standard disclaimer applies. I'm not talking about deer camp here. Last year, the federal government blocked already approved funding to create fire breaks in the Superior National Forest. Guess what's burning? If your house were on fire, you'd run out. Where are the wolves and wild ones to go? Imagine you're seeking food. You can't stroll around an air-conditioned building stocked with anything you could possibly want. You're out in the elements searching for sustenance in an increasingly hostile environment. On this day, it's hot as hell. You're not having much luck as the air is so hazy it's burning your eyes, and you already feel lousy because as you pant to cool off, those rapid respirations are driving particulate matter deep into your lungs, blocking oxygen, priming you for bacterial pneumonia. Because smoke toxins are compounded by the heat of accelerated climate warming, your head pounds, your nose hurts, clouds of ash are all around you, searing your respiratory tract. You're dehydrated, confused, because your innate wild compass is impaired. Your beleaguered body, mind, and spirit struggle to make sense of it all when a sudden sharp pain bites into your leg. You muster what strength you have left in a frantic attempt to run, but the steel jaws of an unseen enemy do not yield because NRC. Everywhere we go, we see them on the road, crushed into the road, the broken, twisted reminders of a bigger picture. Society has become inured to the horror of it all. Our own agencies condone recreational death derbies. It's counterintuitive. We're much more informed on wild ways, yet we're moving backward in policy direction in that we perpetrate and perpetuate the abuse. It's literally our current management model, all in pursuit of more opportunities for the serial killing community. If you switch out the victim from a wild one to a human, a prosecutor could legally cite depraved indifference in wrongful death. Each time I sit here at this mic, I hope maybe this time. And every month you summarily disregard all voices for the wild ones. I struggle to contain my rage. It prompts me to propose a moratorium on hunting and trapping. The current extreme stress and threats to our wild are record-setting heat waves, higher tick loads, ever-escalating pathogens, smoke-choked chunks of summer becoming the norm, and a federal administration that's gutting every sector of the support network we've relied on to monitor threats and protect our wild ones, wildlands, and us. A while back, I quoted a U.S. House representative promoting the bill to protect access to lead ammo and tackle. Despite all empirical evidence, he stated, hunters and anglers shouldn't have to worry about red tape while enjoying the great outdoors. He holds the title Chair of the House Committee on Natural Resources. Well, that hits close to home. It's pretty clear business as usual isn't the most intelligent nor ethical stance here. A lot of us in the anti-cruelty camp get it, but I don't hear any decline in the clamoring for more unnecessary taking of wild lives, nor any tempering by regulatory bodies. Just recently, the Michigan Supreme Court declined to hear an appeal on an animal rights case by the Non-Human Rights Project, who, unlike our reactionary wildlife policy, is current on animal cognition science. In that court's denial of appeal, one judge wrote a 6-page dissent stating in part she would, quote, grant leave to appeal to explore whether the common law understanding of habeas relief should evolve in light of our more advanced understanding of the animal kingdom, end quote. Sound familiar? The lead attorney emphasized the judge's perspective, saying it, quote, rejects outdated legal concepts, end quote. I'll close with these facts. Everyone here knows treating serial killing of our wild ones as a sport causes immense pain, suffering, and death. It's basic math and science in one grade school equation, X plus Y equals Z. We need an overhaul of this moribund policy dynamic. I can simplify further. And to you, that's the reductive, frustrate, sometimes misguided, flesh bearer. Surely you can do as much for the wild ones.
Thank you, Marcy. Mike Thorman.
And I wrong. Okay, I got a couple things that I think are very relevant here today I want to say, but first we're going to be asking, have been asking to allow us to bait starting the 1st of July. It's not an advantage in killing a bear. We're competing against the private ground. And you can talk to Shannon or Brooke, or we've taken several legislators. The first week, you have no trouble finding tracks on public ground. The second week, you're still kind of okay. By the third week, you're darn lucky to find a track. And by the fourth week, which was this past weekend, we had 7 trucks covered 100 square miles and never found a track on Saturday or Sunday. Well, the bears don't go very far. The reality is people on private land feed them. I would if I could get away with it too. But if I did, then I could never got caught. I could never come here and complain all the time. So that's what we want to do. And the objection to it by the department mostly has been will cause more wolf dog conflicts in the UP. And we're solving that by you put it in a barrel with 3 1-inch holes. You feed peanuts or corn or something like that only. And we've got a bill going through the legislature right now that would create a license, $30 license that would allow you to use 3 barrels. There's nothing left for a wolf to be there. They'll eat the same cookies and granola and stuff like your dog would, you know, if it was a regular bait. And in the lower, there's absolutely nothing left for a deer. a bear will come and they'll lay there all day and just go like this and get 7 or 8 kernels out and lap it up. And it's about kind of leveling the playing field of public ground and private ground. And those bears, we know we can hold them there. Bears are 2 things, smart and lazy. And if they can go 3 miles over here and lay at a food pile all day, that's what they do. So that's what we're going to be asking. They'll be there for the bait hunters in the UP. The bait hunters get a week before we get started. This isn't a selfish thing. It's just a good way to help level the playing field. The second thing I want to say here today, real fast, is our new law about feeding animals within 100 yards of your house. You're going to see a lot of bear complaints. And I'm concerned that future panels like this are going to interpret that there's a lot more bears. Oh, look at the bears. Look at the complaints went up by 30%. I don't think that was such a wise rule to make, but I'll just lead into my most important thing I want to say. That was made by legislators. Voting matters. Voting makes a difference. We were told at the Michigan Bear Hunters Convention that almost 370-some thousand license holders didn't vote in the last election. I can't verify that, but one of the legislators got up at the microphone and he apparently researched it, and you can because licenses are public and so are voting records. We have to get our hunters out to vote. It's horrible that they don't. And I want us to do anything we can. Any police groups, the ducks groups, boy, great job. But we shouldn't be here having to have you do that. We should put the people in, and I'm not saying vote for this guy or that guy, but research, do your homework, vote for people that are going to support hunting and wildlife in Michigan, and get everybody you know to vote if you can. We're working on it. The hound groups are just getting going on it now. So voting has consequences. Let's make them positive for us. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Any questions? Hearing none. Roger, you're up.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Roger Thorman, Michigan State Fox Hunters. I'm going to try to speak to you again. I have trouble doing that, but it's been a busy year. A lot of deer rigs, brought a lot of people out, made a lot of people happy, made a lot of people mad. But it is what it is. But there is a problem that I don't think this commission understands. It's the plight of the average hunter. I talked to Commissioner Erdley about it. I myself had hunted a place for 14 years, and it was a nice place to hunt, believe me. A friend, a farmer, you know, and well, along came somebody with a wad of cash, and he gave me a chance to match it, but I couldn't justify that. And that's what's happening at least in a thumb it is. Any farmland, farm woodlot that people was always able to hunt before, it's all lease land now. And when they lease land, it's leased for the years, so that it's the rabbit hunting done, everything's done. So the average hunter just don't have a chance. He's hunting either on crap land or state land. And like I asked before, there's only, to level that playing field, bait is the only answer, because deer ain't going to come into that crop land without bait. Now you can bait at a house, private land is baiting, food plots, whatever they want to call it. That's the only thing. And I think proposal G, which so many of us worked hard on, the thought we'd end this problem of politics entering hunting laws and rules and such, we took a big hit with this, I think. Now there's, between deer baiting and wolf hunting, they've already done a couple things and they're not going to stop. And it's really hurting this commission, I think. So I don't know. I'm just asking to let the only person that can't feed deer now a chance to feed deer. You got to understand their plight. Any good deer hunting land is bought and paid for now. As far as the earn a buck, I think that's a great idea. In my part of the state, deer are really, you got to drive slow. Deer are a nuisance, and now the doe permit's been lowered from 10 down to 5. That's just one of the things I didn't understand on this. The earn a buck would make a person shoot a doe if they wanted that second buck license. There's a lot of misconception about that second buck license. You know that you saw the stats that very few people use that second buck license. They have it though, because there's always a thought in the back of your mind, well, I'm out there hunting, I'm out there doe hunting, that big buck, that buck of a lifetime is going to walk out. And, it don't happen very often, but it occasionally can. As far as what that other guy was talking about, there is going to be a problem now that you can feed at your house. Bears are lazy. I call them just hairy pigs, but they would go anywhere where it's easy. They're like me. When they go anywhere there's food, they lay around until it's gone. To get food out in the woods would help that problem greatly. So I just, again, ask you to think about the average guy, the guy that don't own land and the guy that don't have a wad of money, and don't let the legislature keep making laws, and don't kick this can down the road, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger. Merle Jones.
Good morning, commissioners, council, Shannon, Brooke. I'm here on behalf of MTPCA, Michigan Trapper and Predator Callers, as a stakeholder group that actually is involved in the management of our resources. And I'm here in favor of Amendment 8. We commend the commission and the department both on correcting that minor oversight. That's all it was a correction. But it will allow us to responsibly utilize that resource as we are taking it and managing it in accordance with the law. So it's a good correction, and obviously we support it. I don't have anything really that I can speak to on actually I'm sorry, I got off track there. I had another thought in my mind that I'm not going to share with you today, but Amendment 8, obviously, it is a correction that we need. Again, we do thank the commission for this. If anybody has any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them for you.
Thank you, Merle. Carlton Miller.
Good morning, Commission. My name is Carlton Miller, and I'm one of the officers for Macomb County Quality Deer Cooperative. A little bit about us. We're the largest deer co-op in the state of Michigan. We have over 200 plus paid members. During deer season, we get about 1 million views a week on our social media platforms. So a little bit, going to speak on deer regs. So when the Earn a Second Buck came out, we put a survey out to our members, our paid members, just to see how they felt on this. This would have been back, in May. And unanimously, out of the, couple hundred people that voted, there was only a couple of them that wanted to Earn a Second Buck. And about 90% of our members wanted APRs. So when the amendment came out, last week, we did a public poll within Montcalm County. So this was, anybody essentially that hunted in Montcalm could vote on it. And out of the couple hundred people that voted there, one person wanted to Earn a Second Buck. So I obviously can't speak for the rest of the state. I can mainly speak for Montcalm County, but I have a feeling probably across the state, there's very few people that want Earn a Second Buck. And once you have APRs, I mean, it works. I get it. And so that's kind of on that. The other thing I wanted to introduce, and I've sent an email on it. So, in the last couple months, I'm starting up a second organization with all the free time that I have in my life, called Michigan Deer Hunters for APRs. Pretty much our mission there. So we are a 501c now. So going forward, you'll get to see my face every month, which I'm sure you guys love hearing from me all the time. But yeah, so our mission there is just to, one, represent the counties that have APRs, and then two, work towards implementing APRs across the rest of the state. And kind of the first thing I'm going to ask the commission is if we could maybe take a look at the APR process. I know it's at 66%, which our group will still go through the process at 66%. But during the meantime, we're going to ask if you'd reconsider lowering it to 60%. Back in 2019, there was a work group. I know the commission is really great at having work groups every 4 years, but then not doing much that they say. So back in 2019, when that work group went through, they unanimously asked for 60%, that percentage being lowered. And so that's kind of going to be the next thing that I work on. And I would strongly consider the commission to consider lowering that to 60%. But we're still going to go through it regardless if you don't lower it. And just kind of our thing is, the last time we went through the APR process was back in 2019, which that's far too long. And then our mission is going to be pretty much every year go through the process regardless of what's going on. So any other questions? Nope. Thanks.
Thank you, Carlton. Bob Jones.
Cheers, Carlton.
Take them off.
Hello, Commissioners. I'm going to talk about Earn a Second Buck. Before I do, I just want to make a comment that in 2019, the work group that was put together talking about APRs, that was not a unanimous decision with everybody wanting to lower the threshold to 60%. I know that for certain because MBH was opposed to it. So, but about Earn a Second Buck, we didn't talk about Earn a Second Buck at all this year during the regulation cycles, but it did come up and was discussed at length in the DMI 2 years ago. And at the time I supported it. I didn't look at it as a statewide regulation. I didn't even look at it necessarily as a regulation for all of Zone 3 or all of the Lower Peninsula, but I looked at it as a tool in the box in our really high density areas as something that could move antlerless harvest. And I think that if it's laid out correctly, the verbiage in it is correct, it could be an efficient tool in our densest areas where we have problems. I support the amendment to keep the buck in the control counties that they're shot in, but I think that there needs to be a little bit more to that. I still struggle with the
what kind of abuse it's going to take with ghost does or guys reporting that they shot a doe. I would like to actually see something. I know myself as a hunter, if I had to jump through a few hoops to get a second buck tag, I wouldn't mind. I would like to see those does that get shot in that have to go to a field office, surrender the head, and send those heads in for testing. To me, it'd be a minor inconvenience to me to get that second buck tag if that was the case, and it would help in our testing efforts around the state to have those heads submitted. That's really all I had on that. You know, I support the amendment. I still think there's should be some other things going forward tied in with that to make sure that it's administered properly. But I think it's a tool in the toolbox that could be used in our high density areas. So that's all I got on earn a second buck, but I would like to extend an invite. I know you guys all hear me talk about traditional archery. This is not a Michigan Bow Hunter event. This is an event that I put on at my home sportsman's club at Lapeer County Sportsman's Club, August 28th, 29th, and 30th. We have about 300 traditional archers there for the weekend. They camp. Last year we cooked a 175-pound pig and 75 pounds of top round beef for dinner Saturday night, and it was gone at the end of the evening. So it's a big event, a lot of novelties, and come out, take a look and see what the traditional archery world looks like. I think you'd be surprised.
Thank you, Bob. Elliot.
Commissioners, Shannon, I'm actually glad you're sitting up there. And I'm not going to yell at you, I promise. But August 1st, there was the Waterfall Festival. I just want to commend your staff. Bob, Al, and Ryan did a fantastic job with it. It ran smooth, watching the youth engaged in it. I think your staff deserves a lot of kudos for that. And then also, obviously, we're, as deer groups, are limited on what we can do, but if there's anything that the deer groups can do to help take some of the burden off with habitat projects on the state land, let us know. We'll do whatever we can to work with you and try to get things that you need for that. So, commissioners, it's been a long journey to this point this year. A lot longer than I was anticipating or expecting, but here we are at the end. You all have a very hard role. I mean, if you look at the economic impact of hunting, it's a $8.9 billion economic driver for the state. To put it in comparison, if you add all the row crops, corn, soybeans, dry beans, winter wheat, sugar beets, it doesn't even come to the 8.9 billion. It's only a $6 to $7 billion. And in the agricultural area that we are, that puts in a lot bigger perspective of how much is actually on the state with this. One thing that I heard with the $1 and even on the earn a second buck and even today leading up is opportunity, opportunity, opportunity. We've been managing for opportunity for a long time, and we're finally at this crossroad. If we look at opportunity, the department and the NRC has increased antlerless permits astronomically from the time that you were chair, director, and even the chief. And yet we really haven't moved the needle as far as the densities are concerned. This department has bent over backwards for the ag community when it comes to the DMAPs and it comes to the deer damage permits. And yet only 5% of all farms even utilize the crop damage permits. And out of the 5%, only 40% of the tags are actually filled. So what has opportunity truly got us? So now we're at a crossroad where we really shouldn't be managing for opportunity as much as we just need to manage for the resource. And that's the crossroad that we're at today. Obviously for the $1 side of things, that's what I looked at is this was a way, and I hate to use the word force, but force the hand of the antlerless harvest. When you have 20% of your hunters only taking one antlerless deer and 80% not, that's an issue. It's not an issue of opportunity. It's an issue of hunters choosing not to do what's right for the resource. Now, I understand that not every place can handle antlerless harvest to the extent of what I can do in southeast Tuscola County or, you know, northeast Lapeer County. I understand that. But for a lot of us, we can take that. So
we have the $1 versus the earn a second buck. Obviously, I was not a fan of the earn a second buck as presented. This is nothing against the department. They had a short amount of time to try to put something together, and they did a fantastic job in the limited time that they had. But I too was concerned with the data, because data is everything. It's no different than on the budget side. You know, Shannon, you have to explain in detail why you need the money you do. In the management side of things, we need to know the data of, is this working? Is it not working? Where do we start? Where do we get to? And under this amendment, I feel that this is a positive step to collect that right data. Would I have loved it to be per county? Sure. However, it is in the 5 treatment counties, and I can handle that because the data bleed has been minimized. Now, obviously, I wouldn't necessarily go as far as in person, as much as I would love every deer to go to the in-person. I understand the logistical side of it, plus the financial side of the brick and mortar. However, I would love to see a way to get like Kansas, where you have to take the picture of the entire antlerless deer and the tag itself. I know MSP has the AI technology. You know, I would love to find out how much it would cost and see what I can do on the legislative side to get that money to you to implement that for next year. Obviously, on my side of things, I still would love to see $1, but I also understand the perk or the thought process behind the earn a second buck. We are a very centered society of hunters at the buck. Well, if you want your second buck, it forces you to shoot that doe. And unfortunately, that's where we are today. So as far as the amendment as it is written, as much as I still would like the $1, I can support the amendment as it is written. Because again, I would like to see what it does in 5 years. I just ask that it holds for 5 years so we can actually allow the department to collect the data to compare $1 versus the earn a second buck. And as I said before, if the earn a second buck proves to be the right way, I'll eat crow and admit I was wrong, and I will live with what the data says. Thank you.
Thank you, Elliot. Rochelle?
Good morning. I had afternoon, but good morning, Commissioners, Chair Humphreys and Shannon. Nice to see you. I'm going to differ a little bit from my husband, but a lot of similar talking points. I was asked after the July meeting where my goals for deer management in Michigan lay, especially regarding doe harvest. As some of my comments about being cautious of increasing doe harvest too much could be seen contradictory to my comments in the past, like struggling to take enough does, or that we needed $1 in part to increase doe harvest, which we do need in some areas, don't get me wrong. My goal, however, is appropriate levels of harvest of both bucks and does. That is what I want to see and why I supported a $1 rule with appropriate antlerless harvest on a DMU level. Right now, we are flying blind as to how much we really need. Our population models are outdated, and no new surveys have had a chance to be done. All we know is that there are abundant deer per the department, which gives us no measurable starting point, not even ballpark numbers, and no idea of where we should be. Is there enough evidence to say we need to increase doe harvest in many areas? Yes. But is there enough data to support stomping on the gas and to force as many hunters as possible to take does? Not at all. Not yet, anyway. We hear farmers speak and we read their stories about crop damage, and I have seen it myself firsthand. And I have concern for those farmers. But I also see that the farmer we are helping is struggling with deer in 1 square mile, and then in the next square mile, there aren't even enough deer to go build crop damage permits on. There's no damage. If there are deer on the landscape, there will be deer eating crops. That is the reality. We should not be managing deer to try and eliminate crop damage. That is not wildlife management. That is crop management. One of the farmers we fill crop damage permits for also said that if he has enough damage from the deer to need crop insurance, then he isn't taking enough responsibility for his land and doing something about it. He is a very wise man and is being a steward of his land. Our deer deserve better. Our waterfowl hunters and the waterfowl division are so proud of the quality of their waterfowl management and the public lands. Our deer and deer hunting deserve that kind of pride and excellence in stewardship. I know Michigan Farm Bureau is doing their job and representing their clients. They do that job very well, and it is just business. However, they would like you and the legislators to believe that managing deer in the best interest of farmers is more important than sound biological management and doing what is right for the best quality of the deer herd. Meanwhile, the reality is, like my husband said, around 5% of farmers statewide apply for crop damage permits, only 5%. And of those permits, less than half are filled. So again, the question must be asked, is there really the kind of crisis that warrants a disregard for sound scientific wildlife management and a complete switchover to simply population reduction tools at all costs? Something I encourage you all to think about. Since July, there has been significant discussion about the earn a second buck pilot proposal, and across the board, the two major issues were reliability of the data and reporting. I still think this trial is unnecessary and fails to achieve multiple management goals already defined. I would prefer that earn a second buck be tabled until we have the population estimate data we need, and or we see how the single buck tag structure changes harvest and deer numbers before starting to consider a what next regulation. However, as a data person, I can understand a trial to gather data, as long as it is done right and contained within the treatment area to minimize data bleed. As I said in July, a trial by nature is limited and should not be open to encourage as much participation from outside of the treatment area. The proposed amendment to contain the earn a second buck trial within the treatment area, both for bucks and does, is a step in the right direction to correct some of the issues in the original proposal. We also need a reliable form of registration, and I hope that over the next year, that issue can be resolved as well. I commend this commission on listening to concerns from multiple individuals and stakeholders and seeking to make changes to reach a better outcome. The amendment and all of the decision-making is yet to happen, but I hope that the outcome will be in support of the most accurate data and doing what is best for the deer first. Thank you.
Thank you, Rochelle. Troy.
Howdy, Commissioners. During July's meeting, Elliot asked for a show of hands from those in the room who had harvested an antlerless deer in 2025. Sadly, only one commissioner raised a hand. Even the commissioner who has been pushing earn a second buck hard with prodding from his friend in the Senate and has also stated in past meetings that hunting is currently the best he's ever seen with too many deer on the landscape, failed to raise a hand. How can the commission push a regulation in hopes of increasing antlerless harvest when they themselves have not been leading by example when it comes to harvesting does? This is very disappointing, especially considering how many commissioners live in Zone 3. To be brutally honest, this pilot program seems a lot like a do as I say, not as I do regulation change. The DNR was forced to come up with an earn a second buck implementation plan in a short period of time. That proposal has some obvious flaws when it comes to allowing the earned buck tag to be used anywhere and the lack of a responsible reporting plan. I'm not a supporter of earn a second buck. This proposal does not ensure a balanced harvest from those who harvest 2 bucks. Anyone who ends up harvesting 2 bucks and 1 antlerless deer using this program is not improving the buck to doe ratio. And as we recall, improving the buck to doe ratio was a stated goal of the NRC earlier this year. I was pleased to see a common sense amendment proposed requiring the second buck tag to be used in a treatment county. This is a definite step in the right direction towards localized data gathering when it comes to the effectiveness of this program. Allowing the second buck tag to be used anywhere would result in skewed antlerless harvest data from those coming to the treatment counties just to earn a second buck tag and then go back to their normal hunting grounds to fill it. When it comes to reporting, we cannot rely on the honor system we currently use for deer season. A special pilot program with intentions of boosting antlerless harvest by rewarding participants with a bonus buck tag should include stricter reporting requirements above the normal honor system. In-person reporting or submitting a GPS tagged picture should be mandatory for both the antlerless tag and the second buck tag. A combination of these two reporting methods would be beneficial in comparing data. In-person reporting would also give the department a golden opportunity for further disease testing and surveillance. There's plenty of time to get this done, as this does not begin until 2027. We understand there will be additional financial burdens to funding the pilot program. There will also be additional tags sold if the program is successful. We should also look to the organizations and individuals who have been pushing this agenda so hard from behind the scenes for financial help in instituting the program they asked for. The senator and the Michigan Farm Bureau should be more than happy to step up to help find funds for stricter reporting requirements for the program they have been pushing so hard to get. After all, the Farm Bureau should be more than willing to help financially when the hunting population in Michigan is helping farmers out by reducing deer densities and in turn reducing crop damage. Shannon, the director's not here today, so I guess this is for you. We have learned through the deer regulation cycle that crop damage permits are available for use very early in the year. However, the reporting system was not showing any harvest totals for 2026 until recently. That should be up to date as soon as the first damage or disease permit is filled for the current year, not months later. This is the kind of thing that just sows more seeds of distrust between the DNR and Michigan hunters. Hopefully that will be up and running sooner in the future. Thank you.
Any comments? I'll make one. The comment was, if we harvest antlerless deer, you didn't ask us how many antlerless deer came off our property or people we mentored to hunt antlerless deer.
Correct. But if a person harvests a buck in zone 3, that person should balance their own harvest by taking an antlerless deer.
I'm not arguing with you.
Okay. Thank you.
You bet. Jim Sweeney.
Good afternoon. Whether or not bonus bucks can be harvested outside of the test counties in this earn a second buck experiment is largely irrelevant. The impact of allowing bonus bucks to be harvested in any county would be so small as to be meaningless. The greater concern is that the department is designing an experiment to measure the impact of a single variable, the opportunity to harvest a second buck, using a metric, antlerless harvest rate, which is influenced by many, many other variables which can't be controlled for. The result is an experiment that is fundamentally flawed and which is guaranteed to produce inconclusive data that will offer absolutely no guidance for forming future deer management policy. It's troubling that you're voting on an experiment which has not even yet been fully designed. In a communication with the department a week ago, one of the designers of this experiment shared that in the past there have been almost no experiments from other states designed to objectively measure the impact of a single regulation. The reason for that is it's almost impossible to filter out the influence of all of the other variables that impact harvest outcomes. Despite that, the department is forging ahead, attempting to come up with a plan to do so. Although they have said that it will be months before they come up with any specifics as to how they will actually measure outcomes. While the department used a paired approach in the APR-CWD experiment, the methodology in that experiment was substantially different from what is being proposed for the Earn a Second Buck pilot program. There are a huge number of variables which influence hunter antlerless harvest decisions other than regulations, and they vary greatly from county to county and year to year. To illustrate that fact, the second graphic shows a comparison in antlerless harvest trends between each of the proposed 5 pairs of counties in the earn a second buck experiment over the last 4 years. If the counties were accurately paired for similarity, and if regulations are the primary variable impacting antlerless harvest levels, then logically harvest data would show fairly uniform trends both between paired counties and among all the counties with similar regulations. As you can see from this data, that's not the case. There's considerable variability in antlerless harvest trends between each of the proposed supposedly matched pairs. While one of the pairs showed some similarity in antlerless harvest trends, the others showed significant differences despite having the same regulations. In Berry and Allegan counties, Berry experienced an 8% reduction in antlerless harvest, while Allegan experienced a 10% increase. Same regulations, yet antlerless deer harvest went down in one and increased in the paired control county. Ingham and Isabella experienced even greater variation, with Ingham increasing antlerless harvest by 22%, while Isabella experienced only a 1% increase during the same period. Regulations played no role in the significant differences in these outcomes, which clearly indicates that there are other variables that impact antlerless harvest, which would need to be controlled for in order to produce any meaningful measurement of the impact of the proposed regulation change. To further illustrate the variability between counties, even when uniform regulations exist, I've included historical data showing the antlerless harvest trends which occurred in different counties grouped by similar regulations during the time period that the APR-CWD experiment occurred. You can see from that graphic that under identical regulations, there was huge variability in outcomes. Yet if the earn a second buck experiment shows variability in outcomes between the test and control counties, they will be presumed to be solely the result of different regulations. That's a fundamental design flaw. This commission has stated its desire to manage using science and to incorporate that standard into its decision-making process moving forward. Moving ahead now with a 5-year pilot program without any detailed information about exactly how the change would be measured, and without the proposed methodology being subjected to any scrutiny to weigh its scientific validity, would be putting the cart before the horse. I would urge this commission to take a step back and wait for the department to provide a comprehensive and detailed summary of the actual method that they would use to measure change before committing to moving forward. Unless they can provide a clear and compelling explanation of how they would control for all of the variables, then this simply becomes a waste of time and limited resources with no actual benefit. Moving forward would simply be taking the path of least resistance and throwing darts blindly in the dark, hoping that there will be a good outcome. That's the opposite of the kind of sound scientific management this commission has said it wants to embrace. And then finally, one more concern. We are 8 months into the year and the department has yet to come up with a plan for revising the CWD response plan or the deer management plan, both of which are long overdue for revision. We simply can't continue to kick the can down the road on those issues as we've been doing for the last 12 years. We need to do better in that regard. Thanks.
Thanks, Jim. Josh Arbogast.
Oh, we got a sign now. No phones by the microphones. I don't know if you thought about that one. That was a good one. You come on.
We do learn.
Yeah. So, good morning. Josh Arbogast. Appreciate the ability to talk as usual. I want to be clear about my position today. Crystal clear. I've taken some pushback from my other hunters, so I just want to make it clear that originally I did not support the earn a second buck from the beginning, and I do still have concerns with the concept, as others have stated. But the question before us now is also how this pilot, if implemented, how it moves forward. For that reason, I strongly support the proposed amendment for Wildlife Conservation Order number 7 of 2026, requiring the earned second buck to be harvested in one of the 5 treatment counties. If the purpose of the pilot is to determine whether earn a second buck can be used as a tool to reduce deer densities in targeted areas, then both sides of the incentive need to remain connected to those areas. If there is some variance, it's preventable variance. Otherwise, we're not testing a deer management tool. We're simply rewarding an antlerless harvest in one area with an additional buck opportunity somewhere else. And those are 2 very different things. I've said before that I believe this should be viewed as a deer density reduction strategy, not an opportunity hunt. We need to call it that. The wording is everything in this subject. If we're asking hunters to remove additional antlerless deer because these 5 counties have a need for population reduction, then the additional buck harvest should occur within those same treatment counties. Keeping that second buck within the treatment area makes this pilot more targeted, more measurable, and ultimately more defensible. And I think this amendment does something that's important. It begins bridging a gap in public trust. There's been plenty of skepticism surrounding this proposal, including from myself in here. But this amendment shows sportsmen that have concerns are being heard and that the commission is willing to refine a proposal to better align it with the stated management objective. I think most of us can support adding another tool to the toolbox if it proves successful as a targeted deer density reduction strategy. And that's also an important distinction. We're not asking whether Michigan hunters want another buck. We're asking whether this incentive can effectively reduce deer densities in places where reduction is needed. I could dig my heels in and oppose every piece of this simply because I opposed it from the beginning, but protecting my position and my ego does nothing for the resource. The resource has to come first every time, not just when it's convenient for us sportsmen. And if this pilot ultimately proves me wrong, as Elliot said, maybe I'll beat him to the podium. I'll be the first one up here telling you I was wrong. But if we're going to test it, let's actually test the tool where we're claiming to test. Keep the incentive where the problem is. Keep the harvest within the treatment area. I would also ask the commission to continue exploring 2 additional safeguards as this pilot moves forward, and that's a meaningful method of harvest verification. Whether that's a random pull, I know it's hard to staff these check-ins, but if it's a random pull and you got to go, that makes sense. And the ability to keep earn a second buck off public lands where the additional harvest pressure may not be warranted. I don't believe we should stop working toward those pieces simply because this amendment moves forward. Give us a pilot that's targeted, measurable, enforceable, and capable of producing data that actually tells us whether the tool works. Because at the end of 5 years, the question shouldn't be whether hunters enjoyed the additional opportunity. The question should be, did we successfully reduce deer densities where we intended to? If the answer is yes, then we've identified another tool Michigan can bring out of the toolbox when and where it's needed. For those reasons, while I remain skeptical of the second buck itself, I strongly support the proposed amendment to Wildlife Conservation Order number 7 of 2026. Thank you.
Thanks, Josh. Dave, you're up. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry about that. Justin canceled.
Do I get his 5 too?
No, sorry.
I had to ask. Just want to apologize for my absence the last couple meetings. Family and work take precedence over my activism sometimes, especially in the summer, but been plugged in from afar and obviously here today. So my conservation philosophy is very simple. It's what's best for the resource, and every thought, action I have begins and ends with that premise, what's best for the resource. My sole request today for you guys is that before any vote is cast, that's the sole lens that you're looking through. In my opinion, and I'm repeating some comments from my brethren over here, that second buck take does need to remain in those 5 counties. And I believe that that's what it's going to be, but I just want to reiterate my thoughts on why that should occur. And it really comes down to one thing, and mainly if we truly want to test the merits of what this program is going to look like, this pilot, it has to be contained in those areas. We can't contaminate it with the other areas, or taint it, maybe is a better word, for the 1 buck areas. And at the end of the 3 or 5 years, whatever it's going to be, I will race Josh and Elliot up to the podium, and I will be the first one that says that I was wrong. But the only way to truly know what's best for the resources is to run a fair trial. So that's my sole request for you guys today. And lastly, I want to give credit to Josh, because we talked about this before today, but just reminding me of the power of words, and he mentioned it. But secretaries are no longer secretaries, they're administrative assistants. Receptionists are now front office coordinators, and janitors are facility maintenance technicians. So I believe we should, in fact, change the name of this program to a deer reduction zone. I think it more accurately reflects what it is, and is what other states call it as well. I didn't even need my 5, and it certainly didn't need my 10, but those are my comments. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Steve Wyndham.
Well, thank you, Commissioners and Deputy Director Lott. My name is Steve Wyndham. I'm the Development Director for a group called Outdoor Mentors. We are new to the state of Michigan, but we were founded in 2002 out of Wichita, Kansas. And we have a simple mission and a really direct purpose. Our mission is to empower youth through outdoor experiences and mentorship. And our purpose is to reduce the decline in licensed buyers. That is our user pay model in our state and across the nation. From 02 to 19, we were basically Kansas-based out of Wichita, but since 2019, we've grown into 9 other states throughout the Midwest, and we have a goal to be nationwide by 2035. Our goal is to get more young people into the outdoors. We service people from the ages of 10 to 22. We're not an introductory course. We're a true mentorship that breeds lifelong conservationists and license holders. We recruit mentors, we screen them with a background check, and we train them to be great stewards and examples in the outdoors for young people. And we allow for every single pursuit that our great state and a lot of states in this nation have. Everything from fishing to deer hunting, turkeys, predator calling, trapping, and even sport shooting with clays and other activities as well. We do seminars, we do e-scouting programs, we do everything that is getting people back into the outdoors. And it's a huge R3 movement, because while we're recruiting new hunters and anglers, we are retaining those by ample opportunity and exposure. We're also reactivating older hunters who might have fallen out of the field and want to mentor a young person into what they love to do as well. If you look at the IHEA data, nearly 40% of people who buy or go through hunter safety never actually go hunting. The 3 main causes of that are lack of access, someone to go with, and fear of doing something wrong or confidence in their own skills. We eliminate all barriers. We pair our youth with a qualified mentor. There's no cost associated with it, and the only restriction and requirement that they have is to have hunter safety when they participate with us. It's not an introductory, and it's not a first-time hunt. It's true mentorship. Nearly 40% of our participants come back for a second, third, or fourth opportunity, because if I take you hunting one time and then don't actually steward you through the process of becoming a lifelong hunter, it was a great thing that you did, but you might not ever do it again. So we are not a one and done program. We offer the opportunity for people to come back over and over again. And we also make sure that they are led by great examples in the field. Our mentors are trained to talk about the North American model of wildlife conservation. They're trained to talk about careers in conservation in the outdoors, from being a biologist or a forester, or working for a DNR, or being a guide or outfitter. They're also talked about ethical shot placement and harvest. And so everything that we do in the field actually breeds and promotes and produces new hunters that will stay with us for a lifetime. We are currently here in Michigan, and we've been here about a year now, but what we're looking for really is the 3 main needs. We need mentors, we need access, and we need to get the word out to those youth. There's nearly 2 million young people between the age of 10 to 22 in our state, and about 15 to 20% of them participate in fishing, and only 5 to 8% of them participate in hunting. That leaves almost 1.5 million kids that could be introduced to fishing and become anglers, and that leaves over 2 million young people that could be lifelong hunters, whether it's ducks, it's deer, it's turkeys, whatever it could be, predator calling. There is interest and there is opportunity out there, but we're looking for you to give us some help, and those in the room and those listening, to help spread the word. I hope all of you would consider being a mentor, being a champion, helping us find land access, or connecting us with partners. We've had some great welcome from Women of the Wild, the Michigan Hunt Collaborative, and some other groups in our state that see the power. And being an open source organization, we're not member based. So the groups like PF and SCI and NDA and NWTF, we're not a competitor to them. We are a capacity builder, and we are here to help breed the next generation of hunters and fix the issues that we heard today with budgets by getting more license holders in the field and helping grow Michigan's outdoor heritage. So if you have any questions, love to connect with you and look forward to getting new people into the outdoors with all of you.
Got a
Great question.
I have a quick question. Being new in Michigan for your organization, what's success look like in the next 1 to 2, 3 years?
In the next year, we'd like to hire a dedicated program coordinator for the state. I'm the development director, so my territory is really the whole nation to help find those funding sources. I have been working with Gary and Todd around trying to be part of the R3 movement here in the state. Knowing that the federal dollars are actually restricted by the state legislator was baffling to me. That the DNR can apply for federal pass-through dollars to have more R3 efforts confuses me. But we'd like to serve annually over 1,000 youth, recruit 400 to 500 mentors, work with land partners. We can provide tax receipts for landowners if they give us access as well. We hold insurance on all of our events as well. And really, it's just getting more kids into the outdoors. So right now, we're gearing up for Operation Marsh Mentors with the waterfowl season approaching, looking for mentors to take kids out waterfowl hunting. And with the deer herd issue, all of our deer hunts are primarily doe hunts. So we love to get kids out and harvest that first doe and teach them about the management of the herd.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. It is, yeah, it's 11:41, and we're going to move from 5 minutes to 3 minutes. Dave Pagel, you are first up for 3 minutes. There you are, Dave. I was looking for you. I think there are two, are there not?
Hello, Commissioners. Dave Pagel. I'm with Michigan Traditional Bow Hunters. As you're aware, we came
Dave,
out.
could you turn on your mic
Not on? Should be.
or get it closer to you?
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm with Michigan Traditional Bow Hunters. As you're aware, we came out in strong support of the one buck rule. Still support that. The organization's been very skeptical about earn a second buck. But pragmatically, it looks like it's inevitable that we're going to have a pilot of some sort. And if that is the case, we do support the amendment that the buck has to be taken within one of the treatment counties. I think it skews the data terribly if we don't go that route. I have some issues with the design of the pilot, but I think we're trying to measure too many variables at one time. But if we're going to go about it, I think that harvest of the buck has to be in the treatment area. Kind of piggybacking on something that some of the other folks were talking about, Michigan Traditional Bow Hunters has been taking the youth requirements very seriously. We have a program within our organization called the Lost Bow Campaign. And it basically is a program where if you go out to our website or our Facebook page, we are actively connecting youth that cannot afford an archery piece of archery equipment but are interested. We will connect them with either archery gear that we have on hand, or we have relationships with a number of bowyers that will build a youth bow for a kid to get them involved. It's going quite well. We have actually quite a backlog of equipment right now. So please go out and nominate a kid to get involved in archery. It is working. As Bob said, there's a lot of traditional archery get-togethers over the summertime here in Michigan. And at our jamboree, we probably had at least 25 kids running around with longbows and recurves and back quivers, just having a ball shooting the various courses at the jamboree. The traditional get-togethers are well worth going to just if you want to eat. Almost all of us feed our people very, very well when we have one of these. But
that lots of times there are 2 or 3 day events where camping's available and very good, but we are taking the youth side of it very seriously. That's it for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Steve Rollinger.
Good morning, everyone. Okay. I'm here due to I'm going to still call them proposed, the proposed changes to the drawing situation at the Michigan's managed waterfowl areas. I am going to be real quick and speak about the Shiawassee State Game Area. People have stopped to come. The participation is very weak. It concerns me. We need to get back to 70 and 80 and 90 and 100 parties in the draw on the weekend. And all of the thousands, tens of thousands of waterfowl licensed purchased in the state have paid a portion of that fee towards the managed areas. And that's what we want. We want managed areas. The areas without a drawing, there's no management. And the proposed drawings and the closed days and the proposition of having to be present at a drawing for the possibility of a hunt the following day, and on a weekend, I might add, is just keeping more people away. People are not traveling. I know many people through the years, they're not coming for the first week of November due to 2 priority drawings. There's a second youth drawing at the prime time of the year. A few days later, there's a veterans preferred drawing. People aren't coming. They can't get in the regular draw. So, you know, we want managed areas. Shiawassee was once by far the greatest, even better than the famed Bayou Meadow in Arkansas. It was the greatest waterfowl managed hunting area in the country. I can remember being 97th in the party and still hunting. That's not happening anymore. And restricted drawings and priority drawings are just going to solidify what it has become. It has become basically a very cheap but excellent hunt club for 30 or 40 people that live close by. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve. That completes our public testimony. It's 11:47. I think that's a record, to be honest with you. I greatly appreciate everybody's willingness to work with us on this agenda so we can get through a few action items. Commissioners, I'd like to keep plowing through. If you're good with that, all right. We'll go through briefly through the business items. New business, we have some items that we're going to hear after we get through action items on stream temperatures and some of the land use orders that we've already heard about that'll be new for director's action and DNR and commission action. We have 4 land transactions this month. Are there any comments or concerns regarding these land transactions, commissioners? Deputy Director, is it your intent that Director or you will sign these?
Yes, it is.
Okay. There are 5 orders for information this month, and we're going to hear from those after we get done with business today with our presentations. We'll come back to those after we go through old business. There are no director's action items under old business, but we do have 2 director's under NRC orders for action this month. The first is Wildlife Conservation Order Amendment Number 7. This is our, what has been previously dubbed Earn a Second Buck Pilot Program for 2027. Can I have a motion to move this amendment? Pardon? Mark? I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Nyberg.
Oh, yep, second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Yes, Chair Humphreys, I move to amend the Wildlife Conservation Order Amendment Number 7 of 2026 to change where the bonus tag can be filled. The bonus tag, which is a second single deer license, will only be valid in the 5 pilot treatment counties of Berry, Hillsdale, Ingham, Kalamazoo, and Lapeer, which are listed in 3.101M2A.
Second.
So I have a motion, motion on the amendment and a second. Is there any discussion on that amendment?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
as I think everyone is clearly aware, I was not in favor of earning a second buck in May. Now that we have passed that pilot program forward, I wanted to make sure that we did it correctly. And I commend Pete and the other commissioners for taking the time to make this right, which is why I seconded the amendment to the Wildlife Conservation Order. So I will be voting yes.
Is there any other discussion on this amendment? Commissioner Nyberg?
Yes, and I know this is more of an administrative item, but I just wanted to make a comment that I did really like the idea of being intentional with how we describe the pilot areas. I think that one public commenter mentioned a deer reduction zone, something along those lines. I think it creates, more intent behind the commission's action here. So I guess my comment would be to encourage us to work with the department on that to make sure that we're being clear about the intent and how this aligns with the Wildlife Conservation Order.
Madam Chair, I just want to piggyback on what Mr. Nyberg said. I couldn't agree more that I think words matter. And I think it helps simplify to all the stakeholders out there what their intent is. And we're calling it like huge density reduction zone or whatever that right terminology is. It benefit the commission and the stakeholders to talk about it in that manner. I also want to share that I do still have some concerns regarding the verification, and hopefully we can continue to look at economical, affordable ways to make sure we have accurate verification as possible.
Sure.
Yes.
As a proponent of this deer density reduction or earn a second buck, this is certainly something we're working on. It's not going to be slammed into place without a lot of discussion through the commission, Chair Humphreys, the director. This is a big opportunity to reduce doe density and deer density in those areas, and therefore reducing hopefully the spread of CWD, which allows us to control this disease before it gets out of hand. So I'm speaking without a lot of data in front of me, but I know if we reduce doe numbers and deer numbers, we have a better chance at reducing the spread of this disease. So that's why we're doing this program. So it's a pilot. We're going to get it right, and we're going to see if it works.
Any other discussion or comments? I'd like to call the vote on the amendment. This is the amendment portion of it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, the same. The amendment passes. All right, I'd like to call for the vote. Is there any discussion on the amendment number 7 as amended now before we move on? Okay, hearing that, then I'd like to call the vote for the motion to approve Wildlife Conservation Order Amendment Number 7 of 2026 as amended. All in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed, the same. Passes unanimously. Thank you. All right. Our other action item is Wildlife Conservation Order Amendment number 8 of 2026 for the muskrat trapping season. May I have a motion?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion or comments regarding this amendment? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the same. This amendment is approved unanimously. Okay, rather than going into committee reports. Yes. Yeah, we could do that. Are you ready to do that? At this point, I asked you to wait until after public appearances. I think we've lost a lot of our waterfall hunters at this point, but still.
Yeah, Madam Chair, thank you. Obviously, this is an issue that's been talked about for a long time, our license fees. Unfortunately, we have not been getting the necessary traction with some of our other state partners. Being the chair of the Fisheries Committee and working with Commissioner Walters, who's the chair of the Wildlife Committee, we thought it was important for the commission to go on record about the need to increase our license fee and send that to our partners over at the state. Commissioner Walters, do you have anything before I read the resolution to add?
I would just like to thank Commissioner Fewens for giving me the opportunity to work together with him. I think this resolution is very strong and powerful, and I think with review from all the commissioners, it should go smoothly. So thank you.
Resolution in support of hunting and fishing license fee increase for the Department of Natural Resources. Whereas the Michigan Department of Natural Resources, Fisheries and Wildlife programs are funded primarily through hunting and fishing license revenue and federal excise taxes on hunting, fishing, and shooting equipment. And whereas Michigan's current hunting and fishing license package and program costs have increased significantly since that time. And whereas budget constraints have required the department to reduce expenditures through staffing adjustments, deferred maintenance, and other operational efficiencies. And whereas hunting and fishing organizations have expressed support for an updated license package, therefore be it resolved that the Michigan Natural Resources Commission encourages the Michigan legislature to enact an updated hunting and fishing license package. And be it further resolved that the commission urges the department to work with hunters and anglers when addressing future budget reductions so that fisheries and wildlife programs and hunting and fishing opportunities are maintained to the greatest extent possible.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the same. Resolution passes unanimously. Great. We are sitting at 11:57 right now. How long are our presentations? So we have less than a half hour of presentations. Can we move through those so people have them, and then we'll take a break for lunch or reports? Or maybe take reports and then take lunch. All right. Pardon me. We're gonna power through. All right. So Director, I'm going to turn it back over to you for those presentations. The Deputy Director, excuse me.
Yeah. All right, we have an update on the scientific management resolution. Monthly, we do this, so this should be a quick update. We have Chad Stewart here, head of our deer program group, and Sarah Thompson, Chief of Wildlife.
1 minute left, so good morning, everyone. I will be very quick with this. I know there's a lot of more on the agenda. There has been significant progress in working towards our agreement with the Wildlife Management Institute, WMI. Over the past month, our staff has met with their principal investigators assigned to this project to start developing those relationships. And while the proposed work and formalized agreement are not
finished just yet. We are close and fully expect that that agreement will be finalized prior to next month's update. For this month's update, thought it would be make the most sense to give everyone a preview of the proposed work that WMI will be conducting over the next year in evaluating our DEER program. The below items or the following items are the scope of work that will be outlined in the agreement. First and foremost is WMI staff will have access to a lot of the documents that we develop within the DNR to start the process of evaluating our DEER management program. That includes, but is not limited to, our DEER management plan, the proposed and past wildlife conservation orders in recent years, our DMI reports, harvest data, disease management plans and reports, etc. Additionally, there will be a data or a technical review that WMI staff will be conducting. They'll be evaluating population monitoring methods, the research that we are involved in, harvest estimation and reporting, the scientific basis for our recommendations, herd sex and age structure, hunter satisfaction, conflict measures, etc. WMI staff will also be comparing Michigan's approach with other peer states, including states like Minnesota, Wisconsin, New York, Pennsylvania, and Missouri. WMI will also be conducting staff interviews, and that will begin with in-person interviews with relevant staff members. That could include executive staff, DEER program staff, field supervisors, policy specialists, etc. But additionally, WMI will also be conducting a broad and anonymous online interview with DNR field staff, law enforcement officers, etc., to help ensure that field perspectives are captured thoroughly and confidentially. WMI will also be conducting interviews or reaching out to both present and past NRC commissioners to get their perspectives on DEER regulation process and the data provided by the Department for DEER management recommendations. They'll be conducting a disease review, so they'll be assessing our surveillance framework for diseases such as CWD, TB, and EHD, evaluating how disease concerns are integrated into regulatory recommendations, and consider the communication approaches surrounding diseases. WMI staff will also be conducting a stakeholder survey. So they'll be systematically administering a public survey to receive input from hunters, agricultural owners, and producers, conservation organizations, and the non-hunting public to build on the existing DNR opinion data. And finally, WMI staff will be evaluating the both governance and communications approaches within the department. So they'll be assessing the DEER regulatory process, including recommendation development and the presentation, engagement, and finalization of our DEER regulations, as well as evaluating the external communications that come out of our wildlife division and our DEER program. So all recommendations from WMI staff for improvement are meant to be specific and actionable. WMI will be providing monthly progress reports, and summarized findings from all of these items will go into a final report at the conclusion of the project. WMI staff will also be giving an oral presentation that summarizes their finding at a NRC meeting in the next year when the schedule allows. So hopefully that is a summary of what to expect over the next year. And if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to try to answer them at this time.
That was longer than a minute, Chad.
Sorry.
But no, I just want to say thank you to you and Chief Thompson. This is further along at this point than what I had expected. So that's much appreciated, and I'm really like the way that the direction that this is going. So thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you, guys. Next, we have Fisheries Division Regulation Recommendations. Been sitting over there patiently. Chief Randy Claremont and Dr. Lucas Nathan from Fisheries Division.
Thank you for your patience.
Preface real quickly. Good morning, afternoon, right on the edge. Very much appreciate your time. We'll try to be brief. Also very much appreciative of the resolution just passed, so thank you for that. Lucas, go ahead.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Deputy Director and Commissioners. My name is Lucas Nathan. I'm the Aquatic Species and Regulatory Affairs Unit Manager for Fisheries Division. And here today to present the first of two sets of regulation recommendations for this year's regulation cycle. As always with these presentations, I like to start off with a quick overview and reminder of our fisheries order process. While I get a few months to come here and speak with you all at commission meetings on regulations, this is an ongoing effort from our staff behind the scenes. And it can really start at any time from any place. Usually it starts with identifying an issue or an opportunity that our staff might come up with following a survey, or they might hear from anglers from an advisory committee or other anglers from the public that see an opportunity that could be addressed with regulations. From there, our local staff start the review. They're the ones with the local knowledge, the expertise of the system, the data, and they can provide that initial review. From there, a proposal form gets developed. It moves through our basin team review process, which is sort of a peer-to-peer review process internally, and also serves as an internal decision step in this process. From there, we get angler input, whether that be our advisory committees, anglers, sometimes do broader social surveys if the regulation warrants it. And that allows us to revise that proposal as needed. And from there, it goes into our multi-divisional review committee, which consists of fisheries, law enforcement, and executive division. And the last step in our internal process is to get the signatures from Chief Claremont, other chiefs that get to review the fisheries order and executive approval. And that finally brings us to today, which is presenting our recommendations. And pending your discussion and decision, they would either get implemented immediately or find their way into our regulations book for the next fishing season, which would begin April 1st. And throughout this process, we always use a diverse set of criteria when we're thinking about our regulations. Obviously, the biological rationale and the impacts on fish populations is the first thing that comes to mind, but it's not the only thing. We know that we need to take angler opportunity into consideration, the enforceability of the regulations, angler support and getting representative feedback from our anglers on the management strategies. And last, but certainly not least, regulatory complexity is something that we're always keeping in mind as well. So depending on the regulation, these things might be more or less important depending on what we're trying to accomplish, but they're all always present and always things that we're taking into consideration. And also note, we kind of picture this as a filter of sorts, and that's meant to represent that we oftentimes talk about more regulations throughout the year, but only a subset of those that make it through our process and check all these boxes that we're concerned about ultimately make it here today to present our recommendations. But with that in mind, for this year, we have recommended changes to 5 fisheries orders. Then those are focused on northern pike, lake sturgeon, trout, and salmon. And this year, all of those recommendations are focused on inland lakes and streams, so we don't have any Great Lakes specific regulations that we're recommending for this year. That map on the right-hand side there and the dots represent where in the state those regulations would be focused, with the colors representing the 5 different fisheries orders. So you can see it's a pretty broad distribution this year, but tended to be a lot in the Lake Michigan Basin. Quick overview of where we're going today and next month. We have 3 orders to share today for information. That includes Fisheries Order 205, which is our Michigan-Wisconsin boundary waters regulations, Fisheries Order 210, which is designated trout streams, and Fisheries Order 254, which is inland lakes, trout, and salmon regulations. Looking ahead to next month in September, we'll have 2 orders, Fisheries Order 204, which is spawning closures, and Fisheries Order 206 is our special regs for warm water species. Both sets of those recommendations be focused on northern pike. So jumping into the first order, Fisheries Order 205. Again, this is our boundary waters order. So we try to align regulations between Michigan and Wisconsin to avoid confusion and avoid creating ineffective regulations that might differ. This one is focused on the Menominee River for lake sturgeon. If you remember last year, we had recommended and ultimately it was decided that we expanded a catch and immediate release or CIR opportunity for lake sturgeon in this section of the Menominee River. Through this process and after the kind of dust settled on our process and Wisconsin's, we recognized that there was some slight confusions and some inconsistencies with the way that Wisconsin regulations were worded. So this is intended just to be a cleanup of this change, with the resulting proposed changes being to delineate the Grand Rapids Dam, which is that solid black bar there on the map. Upstream of there would be a CIR season from the first Saturday in June through the first Sunday in March, with the possession season through the month of September, starting the first Saturday. Downstream of that dam would be a CIR season during the month of September, starting that first Saturday. So again, this one not a change, necessarily an opportunity, just meant to clarify these regulations and the intent behind the regulations. Therefore, we recommend it being for immediate effect, just to get this cleaned up as soon as we can.
Just for clarity.
Yep.
Is there a way that they can meander past the dam, or are they two separate kind of
separate
management streams?
Yeah, that's hence the different regulations there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next up, Fisheries Order 210 is our designated trout streams. This one we have recommendations on several different water bodies. So I'm going to walk through a couple of different groups. And the underlying issue here is pretty consistent. Trout regulations are highly specialized. We have a lot of special regs across the state. And when that happens and these systems continue to change, we eventually recognize that some of these regulations no longer make sense based on what the system can support and what we're trying to achieve with our management goals. And this can cause a lot of confusion. We hear a lot of that from our anglers as well as our staff, that trout regulations are some of the most confusing ones we have. So we try to avoid that confusion when we can and update these regulations as needed once we do survey work or we learn more about these systems. So the first recommendation we have is on Thayer Creek in Crawford County. It's that black rectangle there. This is a tributary as part of the Ossabaw River Basin. This is a system that has been managed for trout. We know that anglers like to pursue trout in this area. Recent water temperature monitoring suggests that it can support trout year-round. But for whatever reason, just hasn't made it into our orders yet. So currently it's just managed under our statewide regulations. But we're proposing to add it in as a designated trout stream, which would automatically apply our type 1 fishing regulations, which the main change there being that you have that closed season that would open at the end of April through September 30th. So it provides some additional protections for these trout populations during potential spawning windows. While I'm on this slide, brief tangent, but I want to acknowledge this map here that's on the right, and the map that you'll see throughout my presentation here today is fresh from our newly released this year online trout and salmon regulations mapper. So it's a new tool, and the kudos go to Austin Bartos, our GIS specialist in the division, and Christian Lesage is our regulatory specialist. With their powers combined, they're a dynamic duo, and they were able to provide this tool, and it's now available online as well as through our app, and it allows the opportunity where you can zoom in and out, click on the water body you're interested in, and the regulations will pop up for you to look at. So it's a huge tool. We've heard a lot about this from our staff. I'll admit like, this is a huge thing just for me and my work to be able to help wrap my head around some of these regulations. So it's a great tool. If you haven't checked it out, I highly encourage you to do so. And you'll see some additional maps here throughout my slides. Next up, we have a couple of different clarifications in the Van Buren County. So it's in the Dowagiac River watershed. That bottom black rectangle on the bottom right corner of the map is Dowagiac Creek, and the upper one is the Dowagiac River as well as Lake of the Woods drain. Both of these cases, there's just some minor wording confusion about referencing where road crossings do or don't cross the water bodies, and in the case of Dowagiac Creek, modifying where there used to be an impoundment, it's no longer there, bumping that designated trout stream delineation just a little bit further downstream. In both of these cases, it's more about modifying the designated trout stream boundary than it is the type regulation. So it's not a major impact on trout fishing opportunities, just meant to provide that clarification of where the designated trout boundary should be. Last up for Fisheries Order 210, this one is Glass Creek in Berry County, again identified by the black rectangle there. This is one that has been managed for trout fishing and has been stocked with brown trout for a number of decades. But up until 2024, when a survey found that the water temperatures exceeded the preferred and sometimes the thermal tolerance of brown trout, so stocking was discontinued in 2024. It's mostly warm water species at this point. So given that, especially with stopping stocking, it's no longer going to provide that trout fishing opportunity. This is one that we just want to pull off from the designated trout list to avoid any confusion that this is no longer a place that anglers could expect to go to catch trout.
So if there is an angler that happens to catch a brown trout that may have survived, how does that work?
So there still are statewide regulations. So the designated trout stream regulation, the biggest thing is that it would have that closed season. So now it opens up for year-round fishing opportunities.
And are there bag limits and sizes?
Correct. Yep.
Is that changed due to weather changes or groundwater recharge?
Probably a combination, but we know, trout management across, the country and the world, we're seeing continuous increasing temperatures in some of these systems, and that can be heavily influenced by if there's the percentage of groundwater influx into the systems. But we know that some of these systems are susceptible to increased temperatures, and that can ultimately lead to them being less trouty and less able to support trout, especially year-round.
That's also an area with a lot of groundwater recharge, isn't it? I think our water withdrawal project, this used to be an area.
Into Jay's question, Jay's presentation, so why don't we let Jay cover
Okay,
that?
sorry, I jumped ahead, sorry.
Okay, last up, in terms of fisheries orders, 254, again, this is our inland lake trout and salmon regulations. First one, Silver Lake Basin, just west of Marquette, identified there in the map. Really same issue here. There's just an alignment of what we're trying to achieve and what the system can support. This is one that hasn't been stocked since 2002 with brook trout, and it, to the best of our knowledge, only supports warm water species at this time, including even some bluegill stocking that has happened over the last decade or so. So it's more of a warm water fishery at this time. So again, removing this would be more about just not misrepresenting the opportunity here. So by pulling off this from the type B regulations, it would provide an opportunity for other species, and we recommend this one being for immediate effect, given that it is liberalizing opportunity. It doesn't necessarily pose any harm to the lack of trout that are there. And last up for today, still within Fisheries Order 254. This one is focused on type E lakes, but specifically motivated by Torch Lake. This one has just caused some confusion. Torch Lake is is the only inland lake that we stock with Atlantic salmon, and recently realized that within our order, within type E lakes, we don't actually specify what the limit is for salmon. The intent and the way we've communicated and been enforcing it is that it's part of the 3 fish limit along with trout. It's just not technically currently listed in the order that way. So this is just a administrative fix. So we're suggesting to clarify that salmon should be included in that same 3 fish daily possession limit and still follow all the same size limits and things that have been enforced for Atlantic salmon. So another recommendation for immediate effect, given that this is how we've been communicating these regulations and opportunity, but we can try to address that confusion as quickly as possible. And that's all I have for today, but happy to take any questions. Always, we'll see you again next month.
All right.
Did I stick to my 15 minutes?
Good.
Job.
Thank you.
All right, last but
I'll
not
lead
least.
in as Jay's stepping up. So I know Shannon mentioned it last time, but we want to congratulate Jay has taken over as Assistant Fisheries Chief for Ed Ice. So Jay, appreciate you doing that and all the work you've had on Prairie River. So turn it over to you. All right, thank you.
Congratulations.
Thunder. Just so you know, this is the Prairie River stream temperature reclassification, which has been a long story. So Jay will tell us that.
It certainly has, and Shannon's been there from the get-go. You were interim director when we were going through this the first time. So this is the second time it's come to the commission. First time we had this room filled with water user groups that were concerned about the redesignation. Shannon decided to table it for more information, and that was a good move. This time we got a lot more data, and I think we're making a better decision. So the background of this, it goes back to 2008, the Great Lakes Compact, and all 8 states basically got together and said, we're going to protect the Great Lakes water. 20% of the world's fresh water is here. And the first thing they wanted to do is restrict diversions from the Great Lakes. And second was to manage the water that's used in the Great Lakes. So Eagle followed up with a update to Part 327, which basically provided some guidelines on managing water use in Michigan, and it established a water withdrawal tool. And what was really interesting about this time, it looked at stream temperature as a way, as a means to look at how much water could be safely withdrawn, as well as index flows. And the purpose behind that was to be able to maintain fish communities in these streams, knowing that if you withdraw too much, you might change the temperature and then change the fish community. So it was really good legislation, I believe. So fish division's involved with it. We created a policy to guide staff on how to collect temperature and the process to change designation. And this has DNR director authority. So the streams that we have, it's based on temperature, as I mentioned. There's 4 different temperature classifications, from cold to warm, and then they're also by size. So small streams, less than 80 square miles, up to large streams. Most of our streams are cold and small, and the next big category is cool. Our warm streams, our big rivers, they're all pretty much warm, like the Grand River or Saginaw River. This is where they're distributed throughout the state. So as we think about Michigan, the northern Michigan's where a lot of our cold water streams are. Those are the purples and the blues. So Asaba River is in that category, as well as the upper Manistee. Much of the Upper Peninsula is also cold and cold transitional. We have some pockets in southern Michigan that are associated with glacial moraines, but most of southern Michigan is typically that cool to warm water streams, which are the red.
Jay, I'm going to ask you to just pause, and I know we're trying to be brief, but I have to go back to Shan's comment earlier. If you look at the streams in Michigan, 52,000 miles, if you were to put the inland lakes on top of that, Michigan is, with the Great Lakes, it's basically water. So just had to say that. Put a plug.
Yeah. So how the water withdrawal tool works is if you want to have a large quantity withdrawal, which is over 100,000 gallons per day, you log into the Eagle system, you enter the location where you want to put the well, whether it's going to be a surface well or groundwater, and the system will put you in a category, basically, that's based on the stream's temperature and its size. And so if you go into the system and it shows that you're in a cold water stream area, it calculates and accumulates all the registered wells in that area. And if you're in a zone A or B, there's a lot of water yet to be used, and you'll automatically get a permit for that registered well. As you get into zone C, it's more of a cautionary area. You could automatically get your permit, or there might be a site-specific review that's done by Eagle staff. Once you get into zone D, then you're getting into an area what they call an adverse resource impact, and you're taking out enough of the index flow where you could be causing an issue with the current fish community in that system. So if once you get to zone D, your well will not be issued an automatic permit, and you may have to collect a lot more information on that system before a permit will be issued. So while we're here, back in 2022, the Prairie River came up. It was somewhat of a surprise by our staff. We were doing a random survey. We do random surveys throughout the state to basically build a database to help us do regional and statewide trends with streams. So staff went in there, they found trout, didn't think much of it, but then when they compared it to the stream classification, which happened to be warm, they decided, well, we better figure this out because the stream may not be classified correctly. And the fact that they found trout is pretty interesting because we haven't stocked it since 1992, and there are still trout present there in 2011, indicating that natural reproduction was sustaining that population. So it required some more investigation. We did do more temperature monitoring. We also did some more stream survey work. We ran that information through a stream check tool, which is basically a spreadsheet that was developed by a Fensky fellow out of MSU that just helps analyze the data, determine, how much of your fish community is within one of those temperature categories, and also recommends a classification. So through that process, we recommended to go from warm to cold transitional. And cold transitional, which I didn't explain in the previous slide, it has the least amount of water that you can withdraw before you see a change in the fish community. You can only withdraw about 4% of the index flow. And basically you'll change from a cold water fish community to a warm water fish community. So it's the most vulnerable, the most sensitive. And because of that, if we would have went through with that designation, the water users would have been in that area, in that watershed, would have went to a zone D, and they couldn't permit any more wells until they basically did a lot more study of that stream. So after hearing all the public feedback on that, we decided to wait 3 years and collect some more data. So we hired a third party, Kaiser and Associates. They measured data at 5 locations for 3 years. And I'll quickly go through the results of that, which will be the stream check tool, mean July temperatures for all sites, and some of the fish data. So here's the locations of where we had temperature taken. Station 1 is the headwaters, and I just want to point that out that this is just downstream from a lake. So that lake has quite an influence on the temperature of that station. Stations 2, 3, and almost to 4, I'll point out that once we got in the field and understood this watershed better, that's a actively dredged channel through that section. And we often find when channels are dredged that they tend to connect more with the groundwater inputs. And there's a lot of tiling through there. So most of the precipitation that goes into the ground is actually subflow through the ground to the stream, which actually makes it colder too, rather than just being complete surface. So that'll come out in the data. And then station 5 is more of a normal area, and that's where the index flow is calculated.
Were these done by temperature loggers?
Yes, temperature loggers that take temperature every 30 minutes. So we mainly look at July means, and this is the stations from the headwaters down below with the stream names. And like I mentioned, station 1, that was our most consistent site. That was warm every year, which was not surprising. Where you start to see the effects of the dredging is the cooling effect, and that stations 2 and 3 went to cold transitional. So that stream cools off fairly quickly. But in 2025, they were cool, and 2025 was a relatively warm year for that part of the state. Orland Road was quite variable. It changed from year to year. And Brink Road was mostly cool and then warm in 2025.
Jay, a quick question. That dredging, what was that for? Was that for navigation? Was that to get the cooler temperatures? And how long of a span was it?
It's a designated drain, so it has been dredged, periodically going way back, maybe even in the 1800s, but probably every 3 to 4 years it's cleaned out.
Okay.
So.
And then what's the whole areas? It's a drain, obviously.
Much of it is a drain, the Prairie River, and a lot of the tributaries as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Jay, what happens to the dredge spoils?
Most of the time, they're just cast on the banks. Yep. So given that variability, it wasn't telling us a clear way to go. So we combined all the temperature data for all 5 sites for all 3 years to see what that would give us. So with 22,000 measurements, we we got a classification of cool, which was helpful.
Jim,
Fish, oh, sorry.
sorry, did you specifically measure the temperature of the tile water that's coming out?
We did not.
Okay, thanks.
So fish community, unfortunately, we only had one station where we did the fish community. We tried to match up where we had done historic fisheries measurements. Just, we were getting a lot of questions whether the trout population had changed at all since our previous work. So we concentrated on that. We did not have the capacity to do all 5 stations. So we're not using the fish data as much as we are the actual stream temperature data. But we did find brown trout again, and they were the most, in terms of number, that was the most of what we saw there. But we also saw a mix of other species. So the second most abundant, at least by weight, was white sucker. And they can be in, you'll find them in cold systems, you'll find them in warm systems, typically more in warm. Rainbow darter is something we often see more in a warm system, small creek warm system. Black-nosed dace are kind of that cold transitional type species. So the fish data was just kind of showing the variability of the stream temperature. It was a wide range. And if you put the stream or the fish data in the stream check tool, it showed that same variability. So if we're just going to look at the score by weight, 33% of the fish in the community were cold water species, 28% were warm, 24% cold transitional, and cool 16%. So the fish data is across the board. So given that information, getting more data in that system, we are recommending to the director that water use management area 20781 be reclassified to cool. It's currently warm. Although the temperature and fish data was variable throughout the system, I think cool is the right designation for it. I don't think it's a warm water stream, but there's so much variability that I don't think we can call it cold transitional or anything like that either. The fish assemblage was quite variable from cold to warm species. The cool designation actually matches the next water management use area downstream. So that's helpful for the growers in the area that they have consistency through that. And going to a cool system doesn't change the percent of the index flow that the water users can take out. It actually gives them an extra percent. So it goes from 24 to 25% of the index flow that can be used before you get into an adverse resource impact. So I think the fact that we don't have many people here today shows that the impact, at least to those users, is minimal at best.
Jay, when you were doing the fish surveys, did you also collect data on age and length?
Yes, at least on the trout.
Do you know what the growth rate of those trout were since we're in that cool, cold transitional water? Is it better than state average?
I think it was state average, but I can go back and check it for you. We didn't see very large trout. I think 14 inches was the largest we saw.
Thank you.
Yep. So a couple of next steps. We learned a lot from this process. You know, when you have a stream system that has variable temperatures, it makes sense to, take your time, get a few years of data, look at as many stations as you can. But obviously capacity for anyone, whether it's DNR doing this or a consultant doing it, we need some better guidance on that. Now, if we went into Prairie River, looked at 2 sites and it looked like it was cool, it's kind of a no-brainer. But it's these systems that have weird things going on that you gotta get some more information. The other thing we'd like to look at is whether the NRC is the right place to have public feedback on this. We do bring directors' authorities to NRC, but these issues are very localized issues. This was a small watershed kind of in the Bronson Coldwater area. And if we can bring the public meetings to the area that's going to be most impacted, that might be a more efficient way to get public feedback. So those are some things we'll be discussing in the months to come. And that's all I have, and I'll take further questions.
Is it big enough to fish? Is it wide enough
It is.
to actually fish?
It's all private property, so you
Access is limited.
access is very limited, but I'd say in the summertime, average width is probably in the upper part, probably 10 feet, and it gets larger towards the bottom of it to be about 30 feet wide.
Is it known to bring anglers to it, even the private landowners?
I think it's very local and it's mostly private landowners. They all talk about catching trout there.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I presume there's a fair amount of agriculture there because that's the rub on water withdrawal. And like I say, it's been, since we put that tool in place, it's been a hot spot in terms of whether it required a permit or not, if they could do withdrawals for irrigation or processing or anything. Good review.
Anything else?
Any other comments, questions? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for your patience too. Greatly appreciate it. Congratulations, Jay. Does that complete your report?
That concludes my report.
All right. Commissioners, we ready to go on and do commissioner committee reports and then also commissioner reports so we can motor on before we do lunch? Is that the consensus? Yep. All right. Sounds good. We'll start with governance and finance. And I just will say I've gotten some feedback from the AG's office in terms of the vehicle to use as we incorporate some of the comments you had, Commissioner Fewens, into future commission policies. So I'll be meeting with members of the committee so we can begin crafting those changes and putting them out for public review, hopefully so we can reach agreement on them by the end of the year. Is there anything else either one of you would like to add to it? Okay, Wildlife Committee.
So the Wildlife Committee met earlier or in late July to discuss bear and fur bearer upcoming regulations, of which we compiled a series of questions as to type of data we would like to see on the bear side of things. I don't have that list in front of me, otherwise I would describe that. But we also made a list of items to consider at the Bear Forum on what things that we are kind of looking for and what things we are not looking for, to give some guidance in that regard. Nothing to add related to fur bearers. So very good meeting, and we did forward that to the department.
They took us out of order, so fisheries.
Yeah, nothing to add that's in addition to what Chief Claremont and Dr. Nathan had spoke to.
All right. We'll move on for commissioners' reports. Commissioner Walters.
Once again, a very busy month. I attended the Beaver Dam Club on the Black River to discuss wildlife and fisheries issues that we are seeing and what we are about to go through. I attended the Pigeon River Advisory Council meeting in late or mid-July. That committee or commission is a group that is very near and dear to my heart, in that I served on it for 10 years and was chair for 8. And they are really doing some great work out in the Pigeon River country and advising the department on management strategies, and from forestry to wildlife to fisheries to all sorts of different aspects, including the Black River Ranch, which is a new acquired property that will be included in the confines of the Pigeon River country and managed as such from what I understand. The following day, I also attended the Black River Ranch celebration where the director, deputy director, and others spoke. It was well attended and a great celebration. So we welcome the 8,800 acres of property into the Pigeon River country. I also attended a deer symposium at Grand Rack Ranch where deer management, habitat, food plots, including planting types and what products to be used, as well as the importance of health of the herd management were included. This symposium was absolutely spectacular, and I thank Grand Rack Ranch for the invitation to attend, and would encourage, if the commission were to ever be invited in the future, to strongly consider attending. It was very much worth my time and my wife's time. I have been exploring the Black River Ranch with various hikes. And Shannon, did you want to get into that in a moment? Okay, thank you. And then finally, I would like to wish a happy birthday this Friday to Millard Holton, who was in the room earlier today. He's out in the hallway, but he will be turning 90 on Friday, and he celebrates that date. Happy birthday to Brooke Parmalee. Concludes my report.
Commissioner Eister, or did you want to?
Part of my report was going to be on the Black River Ranch, so thanks for bringing that up. We are still working through the process with stakeholders, public up there, and department staff on what the uses will be there. We're going to utilize the access part of it, which are trails and roads, through the PA 288 process, which is what we use for all of our other roads and trails on public land. So that will begin this fall. And we currently have some events planned there. So there are some structures that will be seen. If you do hike the property right now, it's by foot only, just so you know, but it is actually absolutely beautiful. We have two structures that are mobile structures for a potential event for disabled veterans, that we want to highlight the tools that we have for veterans. And so we wanted to use that location as a highlight for some of our track chairs and our blinds that are accessible. And then in the future, we may utilize that property for drawings, which we do in other parts of the state, for folks to participate and be able to sign those blinds out. But right now we're going to do, our director really wanted to bring in a couple veterans, showcase the property. So there are a couple mobile blinds there right now. There's two, and that's all they're going to be if you see those out there hiking. So more to come on that, but wanted to give folks an update.
And just to follow up, this is a great opportunity to highlight the department and a really neat featured program that they're working on, and I fully applaud that. It did come to my attention through some folks that were scouting for elk that those deer blinds are out there, not having any labels on them or what have you. We certainly got in touch with law enforcement, and they investigated it further, and it came back of a very positive sort of approach. So I fully applaud the department for getting ahead of this and being actively involved in getting with the public to let them know what is going on their program. So thank you, Shannon.
Okay, now Commissioner Eister.
Nothing to report.
Commissioner Freeland.
The Michigan Association of Counties had reached out to me and asked me to speak at their annual conference coming up in September, and I had initially agreed until I realized it was on our next commission's meeting. Yeah, and they didn't have any flexibility, so I politely declined, but I did let them know that I thought it would be good for a commissioner, regardless of who it is, to present to the Michigan Association of Counties at a future date and just kind of walk them through our process and how our county partners could work with us better in the future. So I think that was a good potential outreach there with our county partners.
Commissioner Nyberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to take just a minute or two to acknowledge and talk about a pretty significant action item that's not under commission authority this month, but under director's authority, which is phase one of the department's acquisition of the Keweenaw Heartlands property. This is a pretty big deal for conservation and public recreation. For those who are not familiar, about 33,000, I think, if I'm not mistaken, acres of property has been in corporate industrial ownership for about the past 150 years by mining and forest, corporate forest management interests. And the Nature Conservancy acquired that property a couple of years ago with a very strategic initiative to conserve this property for conservation benefits, wildlife, fisheries habitat, and public recreation, which is also very important to the heritage and economy of the Upper Peninsula, and particularly in the Keweenaw Peninsula. In the Nature Conservancy, this is a project that builds off of their legacy also in the Eastern UP with the Two-Hearted River project that was about a decade ago. So I know Rich Bowman was here from the Nature Conservancy, kind of patiently waiting, presuming that this was going to be approved and, maybe being available for questions, but he just recently left. So I wanted to take a minute and point out what a big deal this is. I know it's phase 1 of 2, and it's been a project that's been in the works for a long time. And many people have had a hand in it. So I wanted to say thanks and acknowledge all of that work and that it didn't go unmentioned. So that's all I have to report.
All right. Well, thank you. I had the honor of going down and speaking to the National Conference of State Legislators. This is a group that I hadn't spoken to before. It was part of a panel discussion. It was in Chicago when we had 2 terrible storms getting there and getting home. But it was a good conference, and we were able to talk about private land management. So it was a fun endeavor. We had the CEO and top staff from the Rough Grouse Society in town. I had the opportunity to entertain those folks and also be with them at an event in Grand Rapids and also in Lansing, along with Deputy Director Lott, and Chief Thompson, and Dr. Rudolph is there. Am I missing anybody? There might have been another staff person there. We had a good turnout for it. J.R. Richardson, former chair of the commission, and I met with staff virtually, and I owe you an apology, Commissioner Nyberg. You know that we were going to make a transition and have J.R. has volunteered to, or when I asked him, it was a volunteer after I tapped him on the shoulder, to be honest, but he has agreed to chair our UP Wildlife Habitat Work Group, and we held a meeting to talk about the agenda of that and get it going, and that'll be September 1st. So my apologies, because I know you have a conflict, but we've got invites going out to the original group on that, and then we'll be looking at some additional participants in that because the group has, I think that's been in place. What did we say? What year was it? Stacy had given me the year that it was in place, but it's been since I was director, so it's been a long time now.
About 15 years.
Yeah, at least 15, probably closer to 20. But anyhow, we have a lot of great work to get done there. The numerous calls on waterfowl hunters took up a lot of time, as you heard today. I've known some of those folks for over 40 years. I'm really glad we came to a resolution and they stepped up to the plate. They took the high road. But I really encourage the department. I know making cuts are tough. I know that because I sat in the seat when we had to make a lot of cuts and we lost all of our general fund support in the department at one time and during the economic downturn, as well as being beyond the end of the lifespan of a license package that was with it. I encourage you to talk to the hunting groups and the fishing groups, the folks that pay it, the stakeholders, as we move forward with these cuts so that we can work together and hopefully get a new license package through this legislature and protect and manage the resources the way they need to be done. I also chaired the Boone and Crockett Subcommittee, Health Subcommittee, and we have new best management practices that are getting updated. I'm trying to get an early draft copy of that they're taking to the association in September, so that as we look at some additional science and best management practices, we can better address CWD in the days ahead. I will say, commissioners, we have a couple technical changes we're going to have to make to the wildlife conservation order regarding feeding to bring us in line with what was in that order and the law that was just recently passed on feeding. And the department has asked that we also address baiting and look at the science as part of that. So we will be bringing that information back, but I've asked them to bring us the science, bring us these new management practices as we address it here later this year. And with that, thank you. Thank you for everyone's patience also. Today we received our iPads. We've now fully migrated to state email accounts, and hopefully our connectivity problems are now over and everything is rosy for all the commissioners in getting and reading mail and the information that we need. So with that, do we have any other items of business?
Just to let you know, for the record, I will be absent in October at the Marquette meeting, so please put that on the record as well.
Okay, hearing none. It is 12:51. Right, you have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 We are.